Chapter 154. This time, unless they had no other choice, the Qin clan wouldn't allow outsiders to enter the Qin realm, nor would they allow them to experience the tempering of the heart-refining song. After all, this kind of tempering of the heart was very beneficial to the cultivator. Once they passed, it meant that they would be able to see a few more lights in the darkness of their path of cultivation. They would be able to reach the core formation stage without any problems. If such a person wasn't a disciple of the Qin clan, it meant that they would have several more core formation cultivators in the future, who would be willing to do such a thing that harmed others without benefiting themselves. If it wasn't for the fact that the Qin clan's groom search involved too many things, including the Qin clan's ancestors Lu Qi, the Qin realm wouldn't have been open to so many outsiders. Of course, if they could recruit enough disciples from the rogue cultivators that passed, it would be a good thing, and they wouldn't be suffering too much of a loss. After Elder Xiao spoke, he calmly looked at the cultivators before him and waited for them to make their choice. Senior, this junior has no sect and is willing to join the Qin clan. The Qin clan's cultivation method, the sound wave technique, was something that countless cultivators yearned for. When they were in the valley, they heard that they had the opportunity to join the Qin clan. Now that they heard that they could choose to join, many people's hearts began to tremble. The first to move were a few female rogue cultivators. These female loose cultivators naturally weren't here to find a groom. Instead, they had heard that the Qin family was going to recruit disciples during the groom selection, so they decided to join at the last minute. Currently, there were about 10 female loose cultivators who had passed. They had all been waiting for Elder Zhao's words. Now that they heard it, they all took a step forward and decided to join the Qin clan without any hesitation. Good. Since you decided to join my Qin clan, then come to the pavilion first. I'll bring you to see the clan head later. When Elder Xiao saw that a dozen female cultivators had decided to join the Qin clan in the blink of an eye, he couldn't help but be displeased. He called them to the pavilion and said to the others, "What you just experienced was only the outer realm of the Qin realm. There was no danger there. If you insist on entering the outer realm of the Qin realm, then my Qin clan won't be responsible for your life or death. If you wish to join my Qin clan, then you won't be able to participate in the groom search. I ask you to carefully consider your decision." "Not bad," Elder D added. "Those who can come here are all geniuses in the cultivation world. I hope you can think about it carefully before making a decision." After all, this was the Qin family's forbidden area. The Qin realm was dangerous. If someone died here, it would be troublesome if they didn't explain it clearly. Haha, please don't worry, elders. Since we've decided to come, we've already disregarded life and death. Even if we die, I'll bring the green jade zither to the zither fairy and ask for her hand in marriage. As long as I can be personally sought out by the fairy, what is there to fear about life and death? A young man wearing black clothes and carrying a black sword on his back spoke with a strong sense of righteousness and determination. His aura was like an ancient sword and was quite sharp. His appearance could be considered handsome, a notch better than ordinary people. Standing among the other cultivators, he could also stand out. It was none other than Lu Xiling of the Xuanxin sword sect. Sword cultivators had always focused on the sword. Their fighting strength could be said to be second to none among cultivators. Almost all of their cultivation was focused on the sword. Their sword arts had always been incomparably valiant and powerful, comparable to martial cultivators. Furthermore, sword cultivators believed that they cultivated the sword. The sword was a weapon of slaughter, and it was nurtured every day. The sharp qi within the sword would also be transmitted to the sword cultivator's body, causing 9 out of 10 sword cultivators to have a violent temperament. They would draw their sword and fight at the slightest disagreement. Therefore, in the cultivation world, very few people would provoke such people. That's right. I've long heard that the Qin clan's Qin realm is mysterious and unfathomable. I really want to see it. At this time, another person spoke. This person had a heroic appearance and an abnormally tall physique. He was not inferior to Di Shitian in the slightest. He wore a blue tight suit like the martial arts masters in Jianghu. His appearance was not outstanding, but he had a calm temperament. He did not wear any weapons, but just by standing there, he seemed to have an unyielding fighting spirit that dared to fight the heavens and the earth. Under his bronze skin, there was a terrifying power flowing through his body. This person was an extremely rare martial cultivator, Wu Wudi. If you are willing to join the Qin clan, please come to the pavilion behind me. Elder Xiao did not dissuade them. This time, he wanted them to enter the Qin realm to find the Lu Qi zither. In any case, he had already said that whether they listened or not, whether they lived or died after entering, was up to them to decide. He had already done his utmost benevolence. Becoming a disciple of the Qin clan meant that they would be able to learn the most mysterious sound attack technique in the cultivation world. Of course, no one would be unmoved by such a temptation. Many vagrant cultivators who didn't have much hope in finding the Lu Qi Qin immediately walked out and entered the pavilion, giving up on this opportunity. After a while, when no one else came out, a rough count showed that there were a total of 136 people who had decided to join the Qin clan. This number did not seem like much, but it was actually quite a large number. This group of people were all people with good aptitudes in the cultivation world. If the Qin clan accepted them, their strength would increase by more than half in the blink of an eye. In the future, when they were taught the secret sound attack technique, the Qin clan's strength would increase greatly in a short period of time. Therefore, when Elder Xiao and Elder Xiao saw this, they smiled and stroked their beards. They were obviously very satisfied. Listening to the song of the heart in the purple bamboo forest, seeing through the past, and understanding oneself. When Di Shirtian and the others entered the Qin realm, they appeared in the purple bamboo forest. Now that they walked out of the purple bamboo forest, there was this ancient pavilion in front of the forest. Behind the ancient pavilion was an octagonal altar that could accommodate 10 people standing on it. Embedded in each of the 8 corners of the altar was a gem-like crystal that glowed with flowing light. This crystal was the most precious of all spirit stones, the supreme grade spirit stone. This type of spirit stone was not like other spirit stones, which would become a useless stone after absorbing all the spirit energy within it. Instead, it would automatically absorb the spirit energy of heaven and earth to replenish the spirit energy that was consumed. This was why supreme-grade spirit stones were so precious. Having one was equivalent to having a spirit stone that would never dry up. It was obvious how useful it was in cultivation. However, there were 8 of them on this altar. If this news were spread, it would definitely shock people to the point of being dumbfounded. However, this spirit stone was inlaid in a rather hidden location. If one didn't look carefully, they would definitely not be able to find it. After Elder Xiao and Elder Xiao finished recruiting disciples, they walked to the front of the altar. They looked at each other and nodded at the same time. Their hands quickly formed mysterious seals and sent them into the altar. Swoosh! After receiving the seals, the altar suddenly trembled and a white light rose up. This white light did not dissipate and directly formed an illusory door on top of the altar. Standing on top of the altar, the white light fluctuated like flowing water, creating circular ripples. It looked very mystical. The Qin family is truly worthy of its deep foundation. Legend has it that this is an illusory door that has been passed down since ancient times. Once you enter the door, you'll be able to reach the world behind it in the blink of an eye. It's so close yet worlds apart. This is too inconceivable. I've only taken a transportation formation before. This is the first time I've seen this illusory door. Behind the illusory door must be the true location of the Qin domain. It can't be in another space, right? Legend has it that the illusory door leads to different spaces opened by those with great abilities. When this illusory door appeared, those who had heard of this top-notch transportation formation trembled. Traces of strange light appeared in their eyes. Many people even cried out in alarm. They didn't expect that the Qin domain would be transported through this illusory door. This was because since ancient times, the illusory door was always connected to a certain independent space. It was like a hidden paradise that was difficult to find with the naked eye or divine sense. This was the most mysterious thing. Everyone, Once you enter this door, you'll be able to reach the true Qin domain. However, once you enter the Qin domain, this elder will not be able to help you. If you can obtain any opportunity inside, then it's your good fortune. Go. Elder D smiled faintly, as if nothing could disturb his mind. His mind was calm and serene. He opened the illusory door and entered the ancient pavilion with Elder Shao. He didn't care about anything else. Those who were willing to enter would enter. Those who were unwilling would not be forced. It was all voluntary. Everyone, I'll go first. I, Lu Xiling, want to see what this Qin domain is like. Without the slightest hesitation, Lu Xiling dashed up the altar like a bolt of lightning and slammed into the illusory void door. In the next moment, everyone saw the illusory void door ripple like a layer of water, and Lu Xiling's figure disappeared just like that. However, the surrounding spiritual qi of heaven and earth did not even emit a single ripple. It was indeed extremely mysterious. With someone taking the lead, the others also moved. One by one, they rushed into the illusory door as if they were afraid that someone would snatch the Lu Qi zither away. Sakura stood in place and didn't rush in with them. He just coldly watched the large group of cultivators enter the door one by one. However, in his heart, he secretly thought, this Qin family is definitely not an ordinary cultivation family. This illusory void door, let alone a cultivation family, even those cultivation sects can't set it up. Could it be that behind this illusory void door, there really is a different space opened by a great magical power, using it as a Qin domain? If that's really the case, this method is simply unfathomable. Thinking about it was one thing, but looking at the cultivators who wanted to enter, they had all disappeared into the illusory door. Without hesitation, he walked up the stairs of the altar to the illusory door. Looking carefully, it was very strange. This illusory door was really like a transparent water curtain. It was extremely mysterious. With a sigh of admiration, he stepped forward and his body came into contact with the transparent water curtain of the Gate of Illusion. To be continued. If you want to know the rest, please go to www.chijian.com to read more chapters, support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 155. How strange, Di Shirtian thought to himself. When he came into contact with the illusory door, he felt as if he had stepped into water. It was extremely cool. However, before he could fully appreciate it, his body passed through the door. In the blink of an eye, the scenery in front of him changed abruptly. His feet were in the air, and he didn't know when he had appeared in midair. He was dozens of meters above the ground. If he were to fall, even with his strong demonic body, he would be dizzy on the spot and faint for a while. Imperial Wind Technique. Di Shirtian's mind was calm. When he saw this, he didn't panic at all. He immediately used the Imperial Wind Technique. Suddenly, a black wind appeared and wrapped around his body. Demonic chi spread out in all directions. With a thought, the demonic wind wrapped around his body and he slowly descended to the ground. At the same time, his eyes shone brightly as he quickly scanned his surroundings. When he looked, he was really shocked. Below him seemed to be a forest. Above him was a layer of strange fog. Looking from above, he couldn't see anything. In the haze, he couldn't tell which direction he was going. It seemed to be filled with a mysterious color. As he looked around, his body quickly descended. In the blink of an eye, he passed through the fog and landed on the ground. Clang! Just as Sakura steadied himself on the ground, he didn't have the time to look at the surrounding scenery. Suddenly, a strange sound that carried the sound of slaughter suddenly rang out from behind him. At the same time, along with the sound, a sharp sound of breaking through the air blasted towards his back with lightning speed at an unimaginable speed. Not good. As soon as Sakura heard the sound, his two pupils suddenly congealed and his heart started to beat violently. He muttered to himself that this was bad. Without even thinking, he instinctively slapped in the direction where the person came from. Crash! At the same time, a thick layer of black light appeared on his right hand. Within the black light, demonic chi flowed out of the small pores on his arm. His arm suddenly reversed in the demonic chi. Countless black needle-like hairs appeared on his originally bronze-colored arm. Like an inflated balloon, it violently expanded, instantly tearing the clothes on his arm into countless pieces. It transformed into a huge tiger claw and slapped backward. With a slap, waves of demonic chi rushed into the tiger claw. After 9 revolutions in the claw, the demonic chi spat out and directly condensed into a pitch-black tiger claw. High up in the air, the demonic chi smashed towards the thing that was attacking him like lightning. The tiger claw followed closely behind. Now, Di Shirtian's demonic chi was extremely pure under the refinement of the demon refining cauldron. Once he attacked, the domineering aura of the king of beasts seemed to be able to shatter the space under his claws. His feet did not stop at all as he quickly turned around. Crack! Unexpectedly, the sudden attack was really powerful. The tiger claw, condensed from demonic chi, was smashed into pieces upon collision. Then, the real body's tiger claw slammed into the mysterious attack without any cover. Bang! Di Shirtian's burly body trembled violently as his expression changed slightly. The black hair behind his head fluttered wildly without any wind. Waves of demonic chi soared into the sky. The demon refining cauldron in the demonic palace trembled violently and spat out waves of pitch-black demonic chi into his body at lightning speed. Break! Lin Feng raised his eyebrows, and the purple mark on his forehead flickered violently. It looked like a ball of purple flames. A terrifying pressure emerged from the mark. Lin Feng shouted in a cold voice. In a flash, there was a rumbling sound in front of him, and a sharp energy burst out in all directions. Who? You actually attacked me with a sound blade. On Sakura's outstretched tiger claw, there was actually a terrifying tiny wound. A drop of bright red blood dripped down from the claw. Sound blade, that's right, it was a sound blade. When he turned around, he instantly saw what was bombarding towards him. It was actually a blood-colored sound blade that was filled with a murderous aura. Moreover, the sound blade contained terrifying power and was incomparably sharp. It was actually able to cut open a wound on his well-tempered demonic body. One could imagine how sharp this attack was. Although the human body could not fully display the power of the demonic body, the power of the sound blade could be seen. At this moment, he was extremely shocked. When he entered, Elder Di and Elder Shao had said that the Zither realm was extremely dangerous. Once he entered, he could die at any time. However, who would have thought that this kind of danger would be immediately felt as soon as he entered? It really was a show of strength. Alarm bells rang in his heart. It had to be said that when he came into contact with the sound blade, he could feel that its power was not inferior to any Foundation establishment cultivators. It was equivalent to the full power attack of a late Foundation establishment cultivator. Even he had suffered a small loss in his haste. If it were anyone else, there was an 80% to 90% chance that they would have been killed by the sound blade. His eyes shone brightly as he looked in the direction of the sound. With a quick glance, the surrounding objects appeared in front of his eyes. He saw that the surrounding trees were very strange. They did not seem to be in an ordinary mountain forest. These trees were somewhat different. There seemed to be peepa trees, parasol trees, various kinds of bamboos, and so on. On the ground, the mountain rocks were scattered messily. In front of him was a woman with jade-like skin. She held a jade peepa in her arms. Her face emitted traces of killing intent. When she saw Di Shirtian, it was as if she had seen a mortal enemy. She wanted to kill him right in front of her. Who are you? Di Shirtian frowned. He was secretly on guard. If he was not mistaken, there was no woman among the cultivators who entered. Moreover, he had never seen this woman before. They had never met, but she looked at him as if he had killed her father. The mysteries of the Guqin realm were deeply imprinted in his mind. Those who enter the Guqin realm die. The woman stared at Di Shirtian with her blood-red eyes. She spat out these words without a trace of emotion. Clang, clang, clang. Spitting out a cold sentence, the slender fingers in her hand fiercely plucked the peepa in her bosom. Instantly, Three peepa sounds that were filled with killing intent resounded in succession. Along with the peepa sounds, three crescent moon-shaped, blood-colored sound blades mysteriously shot out from the peepa. Forming a triangular shape, they instantly pounced towards Sakura. The killing intent that was emitted from the sound blades seemed to have faintly sealed the space around him. He could not help but feel that he was unstoppable. He wanted to be helpless and be at the mercy of others. As soon as the peepas sounded, the surroundings became silent. The killing intent enveloped the area. Oomph. Today, I don't care who you are. Apart from myself, no one dares to take my life. No one can take it. No one can. No one wants to kill me. I will kill them. When Dishurtian saw that the woman was attacking again, his eyes became indifferent. He touched his storage bag. With a flash of light, a long black blade appeared in his hand. This black blade was more than a meter long. It was incomparably heavy. When he held it in his hand, it weighed no less than a few hundred kilograms. The black light on the blade flowed like water. On the blade, there were strands of cold light. It could be seen that this was not an ordinary blade. It was a magic tool that Dishurtian found on the cultivator's body. It was a weapon. He did not know how to use a blade, but he had some understanding of the basic blade techniques. His right hand gripped the hilt of the blade tightly. He took a step forward. The long blade in his hand followed the momentum of this step and slashed out horizontally. Swoosh! Dishurtian's blade was really sharp. His body was incomparably strong. Compared to a human, his strength was many times stronger. In addition, he poured a large amount of demon vitality into the blade. This blade was as fast as lightning. It drew a pitch-black arc in front of him. It slashed on a sound blade. Bang! The sound blade was sharp and was formed by sound waves. It was filled with a terrifying, vibrating force, but under the blade of Sakura that was infused with a huge amount of demon chi, it couldn't withstand it. In the blink of an eye, it was shattered under the blade. Slash! 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 Sakura kept yelling, but the black saber in his hand didn't stop at all. With a twist of his wrist, he lifted the saber up and chopped down on the second sound blade. Then, he took a step forward and stabbed forward with the tip of the saber facing the sound blade. The demon chi he poured into the saber turned into a sharp saber light, crushing the last sound blade into pieces. After breaking the three sound blades, he took 2 steps forward. Dense and terrifying cracks appeared on the ground. Like a spider web, they spread out in all directions. Kill! The purple king-patterned tiger king on his forehead seemed to be abnormally excited. It jumped crazily, and waves of the tiger king's domineering aura surged out in all directions like a tide. It was like the might of the heavens as it pressed down on the mysterious woman. His body was overflowing with demon flames. His face was filled with endless coldness. Bang! 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 After shattering the 3 sound blades, Dishurtian did not stop there. He stepped forward step by step. As he stepped on the ground trembled violently, and countless cracks appeared. His body pounced forward. His aura was like a ferocious tiger coming down from the mountain. There seemed to be a faint tiger roar behind him. The muscles on his arms were like dragons coiling around each other. His ferocious aura seemed to want to devour people. The demon refining cauldron in the demon abode trembled violently. Waves of demon essence gushed out like a fountain and poured into the black saber. Under the injection of demon essence, the black saber suddenly burst out with a demonic black light. The saber aura was like a long rainbow. It was unleashed. Clang, clang, clang. The woman was also strange. There was dead silence in her eyes. It was as if there was no emotion at all. When she saw Dishurtian's saber slashing toward her, she did not dodge at all. Instead, she was still full of murderous intent. She strummed the pipa forcefully. The 3 sound blades ignored the black saber that was slashing toward her. Instead, they slashed toward Dishurtian's chest like lightning. For a moment, the scene that appeared in front of them was terrifying. Dishurtian slashed toward the woman's head. However, the woman did not dodge. Instead, She released 3 terrifying sound blades that could kill Foundation establishment cultivators. The sharp and cold light made one's hair stand on end and heart beat wildly. It was as if she wanted to destroy everything. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 156. Ding Dong. However, just as the 3 sound blades were about to hit the Sakra's body and blast a few large holes in him, the 7 Sins demonic zither that was originally firmly staying in the demon mansion and devouring the power of desire in the surroundings actually transformed into a demonic jade light and escaped from the demon mansion, appearing in front of him. The 9 strings of the zither did not need to be plucked as they automatically bounced. Bursts of zither music sounded rapidly, and circles of sound waves instantly filled the whole body like water ripples, turning into an invisible protective sound field. When the murderous sound blades from the pipa collided with the endless sound waves, it was as if they were really affected by the slow curse, and their lightning-fast speed slowed down on the spot. Moreover, the sound waves from the 7 Sins demonic zither came one after another, one wave after another. It was endless, causing the 3 sound blades to be unstoppable. With every step forward, the endless sound waves would continuously reduce the power contained in the sound blades. Of course, their original speed still looked very fast, and their slow speed was only compared to their original speed. Demonic Mist Blade. The demonic mist around D. Shirtion tumbled, and in the blink of an eye, it condensed into pitch-black blades. They rolled up and down, forming an airtight defense. When the sound blades arrived, the demonic mist blade and the sound blades collided with each other, erupting with a violent sound. The terrifying aftermath of the collision shattered the surrounding vegetation and rocks. Die. All of this seemed to take a long time to describe, but in fact it all happened in a short instant. When D. Shirtion blocked the sound blades, the pitch-black long blade chopped down on the woman's head. This blade did not show any mercy to the fairer sex, and completely ignored the woman's beautiful appearance. It cut down decisively, and in a flash of black lightning, the long blade had already landed on the woman's head. At the same time, the huge amount of demonic chi poured into the blade almost instantaneously turned into countless sharp blade rays that poured down, engulfing the woman in one fell swoop. Bang! D. Shirtion's all-out attack was so shocking that it could split mountains and split mountain torrents. Under such a shocking blade, how could the woman escape? She was immediately crushed into countless pieces by the thousands of blade rays. No matter what you are, anyone who makes this king an enemy must die. D. Shirtion landed on the ground, his body seething with killing intent. The purple king mark on his forehead flickered like flames. Only Wamo's aura had become stronger after this battle. It was as if even though he was standing on the ground, he was still high and mighty, and no one could match him. His aura needed to be nurtured. Ever since he had the belief that he was the master of his own destiny, a seed was born in his body. In order to make this seed germinate, he had to rely on his own experience, battle, and temperament to nourish it. He had to make the seed grow strong, make it germinate, and grow into a towering tree. At that time, the unique aura that belonged to him would be truly cultivated. At that time, every move of his would carry a unique aura. As long as a cultivator's intent realm was inferior to his and their cultivation was inferior to his, they would feel as if they were a few inches shorter when they stood in front of him. If they were to fight to the death, it would already be considered quite good if the other party could bring out 80 to 90% of their full strength. He nourished it with killing, with tyranny, and with decisiveness. When he killed the mysterious woman, the seed in his body seemed to have received an abundance of nutrients, and only Wamo's aura had become stronger. Although the woman had been killed, the scene after her death shocked D. Shirtion. He could not help but raise his eyebrows and stare in front of him. It turned out that the woman had been cut into countless pieces, but strangely, not a single drop of blood flowed out of her body. Instead, it strangely turned into countless wisps of white jade-like essence energy that instantly rushed into the jade pipa she had been holding. With the addition of this essence energy, the jade pipa became even more sparkling and translucent. When it fell to the ground, it gave off a crisp echo. Could it be that this woman was not a human or living creature? After she died, not only did she not leave behind a corpse, but she also turned into a wisp of essence energy that rushed into the pipa. Why is this? Seeing this scene, Deshirtion could not help but be shocked. He really did not expect that the Zither realm would be so mysterious. First, as soon as he entered, he was attacked by this strange woman. Now that he had killed her, the woman did not even leave behind a corpse. Instead, she entered the instrument she had been holding when she was alive. It was very mysterious. He had never heard of such a thing. It seems that the Zither realm is indeed, as the two elders Di and Xiao said, it is extremely dangerous. At any time, I may encounter a life-threatening crisis. If I am not careful, my body and soul will be destroyed immediately, and my demon essence will dissipate on the spot. No, I must find a hidden place as soon as possible to form the demon vein and break through my current cultivation. The higher my strength, the more I have the ability to protect my life in the Zither realm. Otherwise, if there are more women like that, I will be in real danger. Deshirtion knew that no matter when, as long as he was alive, he would have the opportunity to achieve the goal in his heart. If he was not even alive, then no matter how many ideas he had, no matter how many ambitions he had, it would all be for naught. Now, his cultivation had reached the best time to form the first demon vein. Once he succeeded in forming the demon vein, his cultivation would increase greatly. Then, no matter how mysterious the Zither realm was, he would have more ability to protect himself. The strength of the woman's attack just now could be said to not be inferior to any late Foundation establishment cultivator. If 2 or 3 of them had appeared at the same time, he would have thought of a way to escape first. Pata! Relaxing his brows, he looked at the jade pipa on the ground and walked steadily toward it. In the blink of an eye, he arrived in front of the pipa and picked it up from the ground. At the same time, he poured his demon essence into the pipa. With this, his body could not help but tremble. His usually calm face suddenly flashed with a trace of surprise. This pipa is actually a magic weapon, and a high-grade one. The jade pipa was a magic weapon, so Deshirtion did not find it too strange. However, this jade pipa was not only a magic weapon, but also did not seem to have any trace of refinement. It was as if it was naturally formed. It was a whole, without the slightest connection. There was also no formation inside, as if it was the embryo of a magic weapon. As long as a formation was integrated into it and the primordial spirit was imprinted, it would be a high-grade magic weapon. Impossible! How can there be such a strange thing in this world? If there is a magic weapon that is born and nurtured by the heavens, then it should not just be a magic weapon, but a supreme treasure. Strange, there is definitely something strange about this. Could it be that the woman is not human? What is going on? For a moment, it was as if thunder was roaring in his mind. His eyes were filled with bewilderment and suspicion, but he still could not figure out the main point. He secretly frowned and collected his thoughts. No matter what kind of secret this Zither realm has, as long as I am here, I will figure it out sooner or later. He didn't think too much about it, and put the jade pipa in his storage bag. This jade pipa was a tool embryo. In the future, as long as he wanted to use it, he could refine it into a high-grade magic tool at any time. It was a rare treasure, even more precious than refining materials. He understood that perhaps the benefits that Elder Di and Elder Xiao said before that he could obtain from the Zither realm should be this if there was no accident. Looking around, there were pipas, bamboos, and so on. They were everywhere. At a glance, he could not see the end. If he flew into the sky, he would only see a dense fog. It was impossible to see how vast this forest, or rather, the entire Zither realm, was. However, He could basically confirm that this was not the original world, but a different space opened up by the Qin family's ancestors with great magical powers. It created a hidden paradise like the Zither realm. There are dangers everywhere in the Zither domain. I'm not familiar with it. If I were to wander around randomly, I'm afraid that I would encounter even more dangerous dangers. Since I can't find a hidden cave to hide in, I will directly open up an underground cave and hide underground. Thinking about it, no one will think that I will hide underground. If they can't find my whereabouts, no one will come to disturb me when I form the demon vein. Scanning the surroundings, Sakura had already made a decision in a flash. He didn't go to other places to find a suitable cave residence, and immediately decided to directly make an underground cave nearby and hide in it. It could be said to be the safest and most hidden place, and it just so happened that he could avoid other dangers. As for finding the green silk zither, he was not in a hurry. If the green silk zither was so easy to find, the Qin family would not be so helpless that they could not find it and could not take it out. Once he said he would do it, he did it without hesitation. Open! The black saber in his hand swung under his feet. With a twist of his wrist, the saber shot out a saber light that was several feet long. It was inserted into the ground and quickly dug. With D. Shuriken's cultivation, it was not difficult to dig a hole in the ground. It seemed extremely easy. With a roll of the saber light, a large amount of soil and stones were rolled up from the ground. Piles of soil immediately piled up to form a small hill at the side. In only half an hour, a huge cave was dug out in the ground. It was more than 10 feet deep, and the size was 4 or 5 meters wide. It was enough to be used as a place for seclusion. Crash! He leaped forward and jumped into the cave. Then, he pinched the wind-controlling technique and rolled the excavated soil back into the cave, covering up the huge cave. There was demonic power that merged the soft soil with the surrounding earth. Underground, Sakura used his demonic aura to block the soil that had been buried, forcibly propping up a small circular space with a radius of 5 meters. Above it, he dug out a small hole to allow the air to circulate between them. Suddenly, a hidden place for seclusion was preliminarily created like this. Then, he used the most basic set of 5 elements formation flags that he had bought in the valley previously and placed them around the cave, forming a 5 elements formation to protect the cave. This set of formation flags wasn't very powerful. It could only defend against a single attack from a Foundation establishment cultivator before it would be destroyed. Therefore, it cost less than 100 spirit stones to buy it. It could also serve as a warning sign during closed-door cultivation. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 157. After setting up the 5 elements formation flag, D. Shuriken didn't mind that the ground was dirty. With a wave of his hand, the demon aura rolled out and brushed across the ground. Suddenly, the soil and stones under him became smooth. He sat on the ground. Ow! With a low roar, black chi continued to surge out of his body, filling the entire cave residence in an instant and dispersing the mysterious force of the mystic moon-shaping technique. In the blink of an eye, he saw that his whole body immediately began to reverse. First, it was his head, then it turned into a huge tiger head, and the king mark on his forehead flickered. From head to toe, the transformation was very fast. In the blink of an eye, he changed from a human to a demon body. The demonic meridian sculpting could only be done with a demonic body. Furthermore, a human body was forcibly maintained by a secret technique and was not a true form. Therefore, the demonic meridian sculpting could not be done with a human body. Suddenly, he saw that in this cave residence, a huge black tiger was emitting an awe-inspiring tiger aura lying on the ground. Its eyes were sharp and terrifying, and a strong demon aura was rotating around its body. With a fierce momentum, even if it stood quietly in front of ordinary people, it could frighten the souls of ordinary people out of their bodies. My demon spirit is enough to reach the peak of the early stage of the demon beast. If I don't build the demon vein, it will delay my later cultivation. Now, building the demon vein for the first time is more important. It is the main vein that connects to the heart and the demon mansion. I can't be careless. The stronger the demon vein, the deeper my foundation will be in the future. Sakura recalled the description of the demon vein that he had obtained from the bloodline inheritance. Although he didn't have a good demon cultivation method, the things that he needed to do for the various realms were all mentioned in the inheritance. It could be said that the bloodline inheritance in the Tiger Hill mountain range had a profound impact on him. Without that inheritance, he would never have today's cultivation. He did not know whether other demon clans would form demon veins when they cultivated to the level of demonic beast. He had never asked the other demon clans about such a secret. However, it was not without reason that forming demon veins was regarded as an extremely important step in the bloodline inheritance. Among demonic cultivators, the first 3 paths from spirit beasts to demonic beasts were all part of the foundation. During this process, the more solid one's foundation was, the greater one's future achievements would be. This was equivalent to accumulating one's foundation and accumulating one's foundation to break through to a higher level. Therefore, he didn't care whether there was another path or not. He had already decided to cultivate according to the guidance of the bloodline inheritance. Otherwise, if he took a wrong step, then every step in the future would be wrong. He didn't want to walk on the path of cultivation because of this. However, what he didn't know was that most of the demonic beasts' inheritances had already disappeared in the long river of time. The ancient demonic cultivation methods were rarely passed down. Many demonic beasts, when they reached the demonic beast level, would not take the step of forming a demonic meridian because they did not have a cultivation method or the guidance of an orthodox demonic beast. They would continue to cultivate until they reached the peak of the demonic beast level. After that, they would undergo the metamorphosis demonic tribulation and be able to transform. The meridians in their bodies would naturally become the same as those of humans. In the future, they would cultivate according to the complete meridians in the human body. Naturally, their cultivation speed would increase tenfold or even hundredfold. Therefore, the demonic beast clan generally treated metamorphosis as their top priority. And in this way, it was equivalent to the demon cultivator walking on 2 completely different paths when they were demon beasts. One was to transform and mold the same meridians as humans. The other was like what Sakura was doing now, walking on the path of molding demon meridians. From this point, it could be divided into 2 types of demonic cultivators. One was the current mainstream orthodox demonic cultivators. The other was like Deshirtion, which could be called the ancient demonic cultivators. Of course, Deshirtion didn't know all of this now. After transforming into his original form, Deshirtion's eyes narrowed. He thought to himself, the first step of forming a demonic meridian is to shatter the original meridians and use demonic energy to form a new one using a secret method. Whether it succeeds or not, it all depends on this. Clenching his teeth, he quickly closed his eyes and concentrated. In the demonic beast residence, the demonic beast refining cauldron began to rotate at a constant speed. At the same time, a strange devouring force filled his body, swallowing the surrounding spiritual chi into his body and into the cauldron. He was underground, so what he absorbed was earth chi. But when he entered the demonic beast residence and was refined by the demonic beast refining cauldron, it turned into drops of demonic liquid in the blink of an eye and fell into the cauldron, causing his cultivation base to slowly approach the peak. He had never tried to form a demonic meridian before, so he had to be careful. Therefore, he intended to raise his cultivation base to the peak before starting. Time slowly passed in this silent cultivation. In the blink of an eye, 6 hours had quietly passed. Looking at the cauldron again, he saw that the black liquid had filled up a third of the cauldron. All of his essence, energy, and spirit had been raised to the peak. All right, I can begin. Deshirtion took a deep breath. His mind became incomparably firm. With a thought, he saw the demonic beast refining cauldron in the demonic beast residence tremble violently. Then it began to rotate at an unbelievable speed. Boom, boom, boom. The demonic chi in the cauldron was flung out by the rapid rotation. Once it was out, it immediately lost its previous gentleness and became incomparably violent. Like a turbulent black wave, it surged out of the demonic beast residence, rushed out of the heart, and in the blink of an eye, rushed into the meridian that ran from the head to the tail of his body. With this rush, a painful groan immediately came out from Tion's nose. A heart-piercing pain was simply like a tide, instantly spreading crazily to every nerve in his body. The terrifying pain was truly unbearable. At this moment, Tion was unable to restrain himself and couldn't help but let out a painful groan. Pain, an uncontrollable pain. The demonic chi was no longer as gentle as before. It rushed into the meridian, and like an incomparably sharp blade, it destroyed the meridian from the head to the tail inch by inch. Yes, it was destruction. And this destruction was too thorough. Every inch it pushed forward, that inch of meridian was completely pulverized by the demonic chi. The meridian was pulverized inch by inch into countless fragments, which were wrapped up by the demonic chi and continued to rush forward. Everywhere it went, the meridian would definitely be pulverized. Then it would be sucked into the demonic chi. The meridians in the body led the circulation of chi and blood in a living being's body. The meridians and the flesh around the body could be said to be connected to the meridians and connected to every inch of the nerves. How painful would it be if the meridians were broken and shattered? One could imagine it with a little bit of imagination. Just like in the secular world, there was a saying in the Jianghu, if you want to cripple someone's martial arts, first, you have to break the person's dantian. Second, you have to break the person's meridian. Because the meridian was broken, it meant that the person would not be able to circulate and would directly become a powerless person. A person could walk because of the meridian. Without the meridian, a person would be like a pile of mud, forever unable to stand up. This showed how important the meridian was. Now, Sakura was breaking his own meridians inch by inch and shattering them. Such an action, if spoken of, was simply shocking. Even the most courageous person might not be able to make such a determination. Pulverize, pulverize, pulverize. Today, I will break the meridian and build the demonic meridian. How can mere pain stop my conviction? From the pores all over Sakura's body, beads of sweat dripped down like rain. In the blink of an eye, the soil beneath him was soaked wet. His body kept trembling. Obviously, he was in extreme pain. But the more pain he was in, the more firm Tian's conviction became. A resolute thought of not giving up until the demonic meridian was formed emerged in his mind. This process of pulverizing lasted for a full hour. When the meridian connecting his head to his tail was completely pulverized by the demonic chi, he did not hesitate and shouted, "Withdraw!" The pulverized meridian turned into fragments and was wrapped in the demonic chi. With a thought, the demonic chi immediately rampaged through the body, rushing back into the heart and into the demon mansion. The demon mansion was the foundation of demonic cultivation. It was very mysterious, just like the purple mansion formed in the dantian of a cultivator. As soon as the demonic chi entered, the demon refining cauldron in the center of the demon mansion immediately emitted a strong suction force, sucking the demonic chi into the cauldron. After entering the cauldron, the demonic chi naturally turned into demonic liquid and fell to the bottom of the cauldron. The pulverized meridian floated in the middle of the cauldron. The meridian was sparkling like jade, broken into pieces like jade foam. Demon refining cauldron, temper my meridian. Merge into one. The jade-colored demon refining cauldron shook violently. Without warning, a black flame appeared in the cauldron. The flame danced, emitting a demonic aura. This was the demonic fire in Tion's body. When cultivators reached foundation establishment, they could emit true fire. This fire wasn't very strong, and it wasn't the samadhi true fire of a nascent soul cultivator. However, it could be used to refine weapons and pills. Worldly items would be destroyed with a single burn. As for the demon clan, when they reached demonic beast level, they could also emit demonic fire. This demonic fire wasn't something that could be born just by anyone. It depended on one's foundation and talent. Tion had opened up a heaven-grade demon mansion and emitted demonic fire. There was no problem at all. As soon as the demonic fire appeared in the cauldron, it began to temper the pulverized meridian. Under the tempering of the demonic fire, these meridian fragments began to change. One by one, they melted mysteriously and turned into drops of jade-colored liquid. These drops of liquid were originally unrelated, but when they came into contact with each other, they immediately fused together and gathered together. Slowly, another half an hour passed. The meridian wasn't difficult to refine. After a period of time, the entire meridian had fused under the tempering of the demonic fire and turned into a sparkling jade liquid. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, no one would have believed that the jade liquid was formed from meridians. Shattering veins was the first step, tempering veins was the second step, and the third step was the most crucial step. The main character is about to undergo a major reversal. Brothers, throw me a few tickets to stimulate my inspiration. Chapter 158. Smashing veins was to break one's original meridians. Tempering veins was to extract the essence of one's meridians and remove all the impurities in the meridians, making them pure. Looking at the liquid now, it was crystal clear, like the most perfect jade in the world. The whole body of the liquid was flowing with jade light, looking extremely clear. However, these two steps were only the prerequisites of shaping veins, the most basic part. The real key was the third step, which was called transforming veins. Transforming veins was to merge one's own demonic spirit with the liquid formed by the meridians, so that the liquid itself would have demonic power. This was similar to turning one's meridians into energy. However, transforming veins was not to completely turn one's meridians into energy, but to let the meridians have the same attribute as demonic spirit. After the demonic veins were formed, the demonic spirit would not only move faster, but it would also absorb the spiritual chi of heaven and earth and absorb the essence of the sun and moon at a faster speed. The demonic veins would also be tougher, able to withstand the circulation of a larger amount of demonic spirit. Most importantly, every time the demonic spirit circulated, the demonic veins would automatically absorb some demonic spirit and merge it with one's meridians to strengthen the meridians. In this way, the demonic veins would become stronger and stronger, improving along with one's cultivation. There would be endless benefits in the future. Therefore, this step was very important. Whether one could perfectly merge the demonic spirit with the meridians, and how much could be merged, was an important factor that determined the final potential of the demonic veins. This stage was also a test of one's cultivation. This was because to merge the demonic spirit with the meridians, one had to rely on the demonic fire. The demonic fire could continue to exist because of one's own demonic spirit. Therefore, the depth of the demonic spirit and how long the demonic fire could last were very important questions. Okay, the strength of the demonic veins and the pain of my meridians shattering veins will all depend on this. Sakura's heart froze, and he took a deep breath. He knew the importance of this moment, so he didn't hesitate. His mind moved, and suddenly, the demonic chi in the cauldron suddenly rushed up like a fountain, turning into a black line of water, and rushed towards the jade-colored liquid that was spinning above the demonic fire, like a heavenly river rushing towards the stars. If nothing unexpected happened, the demonic chi would fuse with the jade liquid. After some refinement, it would successfully transform into a demonic vein. Soon, nothing will happen. Tion was confident in his heart as he watched everything nervously. However, what he was afraid of really did happen. Just as the demonic chi was about to enter the jade liquid, a crisp sound of a zither, suddenly rang out in an inconceivable manner. Ding! As the sound of the zither rang out, a sound wave rushed into the demon-refining cauldron like water ripples, colliding heavily with the water line formed by the demonic essence. With a muffled bang, the water line collapsed on the spot, turning into countless water droplets that fell into the cauldron. The perfect scene that was about to merge was almost instantly ruined. How could this be? Why is the Seven Sins demonic zither here at this time? Sakura was so shocked that he almost jumped up on the spot. No matter how much he thought about it, he never thought that Yao Qin, who had been quietly absorbing the power of desire in the demon palace, would suddenly interfere at this time. While he was shocked, he was also secretly bewildered. He already knew that the peerless jade embryo that was refined into the demonic zither seemed to have a strange spirituality. It would often suddenly run out to save his life at a critical moment. Now that it had been refined into a demonic zither, that spirituality was equivalent to the spirituality that the Seven Sins demonic zither had. He never thought that the demonic zither would cause trouble at this time. However, there was nothing he could do other than smile bitterly. He sighed to himself, forget it. If the first time doesn't work, I'll try again. Anyway, it's just pouring the demonic essence into the jade liquid. It's not a big problem, even if it gets knocked down. I'll just do it again. He steadied his chi and focused his mind. He continued to pull out a stream of demonic chi from the cauldron. Once again, he rushed towards the jade liquid floating above the demonic flame. This time, he wanted to be faster. With a thought, a black water column shot straight up. It rushed up to the jade liquid as fast as lightning. Ding dong! However, just as the demonic essence was about to converge with the jade liquid, the Seven Sins demonic zither once again made a crisp sound. A sound wave blasted into the demonic essence. Suddenly, the situation was reversed. The demonic essence collapsed on the spot under the impact of the sound wave. It fell back into the cauldron. When Di Shirtian saw this scene, his heart suddenly tightened. If the first time was an accident, then the second time would definitely not be an accident. But it could not be repeated. If it happened twice in a row, then there must be a reason behind it. The Seven Sins demonic zither is my natal demonic artifact. I am one with it. There's no distinction between us. Why would it stop me from fusing the demonic essence into the jade liquid twice in a row to create a demonic vein? Could it be that there's something strange about it? Or is it something I don't know? Di Shirtian was an extremely intelligent person. In his previous life, he had the reputation of being a genius. Now, he was no exception. In his mind, he almost instantly realized that perhaps in the process, he had really overlooked something. Or was the Seven Sins demonic zither trying to tell him something? After all, the demonic zither had spirituality. It could determine what was good for it. There must be a reason for stopping it now. With this thought, he immediately put his mind on the Seven Sins demonic zither. This perception made him secretly surprised. As soon as he put his mind on the demonic zither, he immediately noticed that in the demonic zither, the power of desire that he had been absorbing was fluctuating violently. It was like a roaring river, faintly emitting an aura of excitement. The entire jade zither emitted a demonic jade light. In the jade zither, there was a faint, mysterious power. It was as if the demonic zither itself was transmitting something to Di Shirtian. The power of desire in the jade zither actually fluctuated so much. This seems to be something that has never happened before. Could it be that it's because I'm building the demonic vein that it caused them to change? Di Shirtian secretly pondered. Countless thoughts flashed through his mind. Unknowingly, a light flashed through his mind. He thought with some surprise, could it be that the Seven Sins demonic zither shattering my demonic spirit has something to do with the power of desire? With this thought, his heart was somewhat bewildered. Desire, 7 emotions, and 6 desires. These words repeatedly rolled in Di Shirtian's mind. After all, he was extremely intelligent. A possibility suddenly appeared in his mind. As soon as this possibility appeared, he was stunned on the spot. Could it be that the seven sins demonic zither wants me to integrate the power of desire into the demonic vein? How is this possible? The power of desire was formed from the desires in the hearts of countless living beings in the world. The power of the seven emotions and six desires in their hearts was almost endless. However, it was also the most evil thing in the world. If a person was contaminated with the power of desire too much, they would be eroded by the endless desire and become an evil demon that would do anything to achieve their desires. This kind of power was powerful and could be said to be the most mystical kind of power. At that time, Sakura had thought about whether there was a way for him to absorb the power of desire of the seven emotions and six desires for cultivation. However, after pondering for a long time, he still couldn't find a concrete way and was still exploring all along. The demonic vein was extremely important to a demon. There could not be the slightest bit of carelessness. If the power of the seven emotions and six desires were integrated with the demonic vein, what would happen? Not to mention now, even in the ancient times, absolutely no one could imagine it. Even the great divines of the demon race might not dare to try such a thing. If it was not done well, they might be driven crazy by their endless desires. Should he try to integrate the power of desire into the demonic vein? For a moment, Sakura began to hesitate left and right, unable to harden his heart to make a decision. If he could really fuse with the power of desire, he was afraid that he might really find a path that could absorb the power of desire that filled the heaven and earth. Perhaps in the future, he might be able to walk out a path that was different from the others. But whether this would succeed, and what would happen after it succeeded. However, he had no confidence in all of this. After all, this was a decision that would affect his life. He could not make a decision immediately. This situation lasted for half a cup of tea's time. The demonic flame in the cauldron had already purified the impurities in the jade liquid. He could not wait any longer. If he waited any longer, the demonic flame would burn the jade liquid itself. If the jade liquid was burned dry, then there would be a big problem. The tiger roar technique can only help me cultivate to the core formation stage at most, and it is not a top technique. If I want to walk on a different path from others, I will guide the power of desire into my body today and see if I can open up a path that belongs to me. My life is in my own hands. Seven sins demonic zither, help me. At this time, he could not hesitate any longer. He gritted his teeth and made up his mind. He felt that this might be a huge turning point for his future path. He could not help but go crazy. He made a decision without any hesitation. With a thought, he integrated it into the seven sins demonic zither and drove the power of desire out of the zither. However, he did not lose his mind because of this. When he drove it, among the seven emotions and six desires, he only extracted one power, the power of sorrow. Ding dong! The seven sins demonic zither seemed to be quite excited. The strings of the zither gently pulsed, and a dark power of desire was easily extracted from the zither. It quickly rushed into the cauldron and quickly poured into the jade liquid above the demonic flame. Immediately, the originally pure, jade-like liquid began to rapidly turn dark at a speed visible to the naked eye. Swoosh! The demonic vitality in the cauldron also rushed up, turning into a line of water and rushed in. This time, the seven sins demonic zither did not stop it. For a moment, the jade liquid was as black as ink. It was mysterious. Demonic flame burns the sky. Refine the demonic vein for me. The demonic flame in the cauldron burned fiercely, constantly burning the black liquid above. No one knew what would happen when the power of desire was integrated into the demonic vein. Time slowly began to pass. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 159. Time would never stop for a single person. It would only silently move forward. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had quietly passed by Wan Sheng since he entered the Zither realm. Bang, bang, bang. There were all kinds of trees everywhere in the Zither realm. Most of them could be made into musical instruments, such as pipa, purple bamboo, and so on. They were all different and varied, but one thing was that almost all of the species here were good materials for making musical instruments. It could be seen that the Zither realm was worthy of being called the Zither realm. It really had a meaning. At this moment, sword light shot out in all directions in this mountain forest. Amidst the rumbling sounds, ancient trees that had been growing for an unknown number of years were cut into pieces by the sword light. There were also many ancient trees that were incomparably tough, and the sword light couldn't instantly cut through them. Behind the sword light, there was a blood-red cloud that was incomparably dense and emitted an endless stench of blood as it whistled through the air. The sword light cut through the blood-red cloud, but only caused the cloud to roll a few times before it swallowed up the sword light. The things that were enveloped by the blood-red cloud withered one after another, as if all of their vitality had been sucked out. It was a terrifying sight. TSK, you're just a mere rogue cultivator. Under this young master's blood cloud banner, you want to escape from the palm of my hand? What a joke. If you know what's good for you, quickly stop and hand over the artifact embryo in your hand. Perhaps I'll leave your corpse intact. Otherwise, when I catch up to you, I'll directly refine you and your soul into my precious banner. There are some things that you can't covet. In the blood-red cloud, a young man in blood-red clothes had a strange smile on his face. He waved a mysterious banner in his hand. This banner could be described as evil and awe-inspiring. It was blood-red all over, as if it had been repeatedly soaked in blood. On the banner, there was a rolling blood-red cloud that was constantly rolling. It was so red that it seemed as if blood was about to drip out. It was really terrifying. In the blood-red cloud, there were faint blood-red skulls that were moving up and down malevolently. They let out strange cries, and their empty eyes revealed a faint blood-red light. The entire banner had a layer of terrifying evil energy rolling out. It made people feel as if their souls were about to leave their bodies with a single glance. With a casual wave, the blood-red cloud rolled out. It was obvious that this was definitely an evil artifact of the evil path. It was an evil weapon that devoured people's blood essence and souls. Its name was the Blood Cloud Banner, and it was extremely powerful. When it was waved, a blood cloud would appear. Not only could it protect the body, once it pounced on the enemy, it would immediately corrode the enemy's body. The evil souls inside would rush forward, and in an instant, the person would be eaten until not even their bones would be left. Legend has it that this banner was refined using the blood essence of an unborn baby in a pregnant woman's body using various cruel secret techniques. It was the most powerful magic artifact of the Blood Cloud clan's disciples, and only the elite disciples knew how to forge it. It was said that when a magic artifact had become a magic treasure, the blood clouds it produced would be able to cover the heavens and cover the earth, possessing boundless power. It had always been nurtured as a life-bound Dharma artifact. It was unknown how much blood essence and souls had been devoured by this staff. From the looks of it, it was probably already a high-grade or top-grade magic tool. Its might was extremely terrifying. Pooh, your Blood Cloud clan is truly despicable and shameless. Are you really not afraid that someone will expose your filthy actions in the Zither domain? If the Qin family were to know of this, they would definitely not forgive you. If you want the artifact embryo in my hands, why don't you go fight those weird demonic souls yourself? Even if I die today, I won't give it to you. Within the sword light ahead was shockingly a thin and weak man. This youth's face carried traces of grief and indignation. From the looks of it, he would definitely not hand it over. Beneath his feet was a golden flying sword, and in his hands was a similar flying sword. They flew up and down, emitting streaks of sword light. As they fled, they unceasingly slashed towards the blood-red cloud behind them. Looking at this thin and weak cultivator's cultivation base, he was actually at the late Qi refinement stage, only a step away from foundation establishment. His clothes were tattered, and it could be seen that he was in a rather wretched state. The one chasing closely behind him was none other than the Blood Cloud clan's young lord, Shweini. At this moment, his face was filled with savagery, his gaze bloodthirsty. Young lord, he won't be able to escape. Just as they were fleeing, they saw two blood-red clouds suddenly appear in front of them. Those were Shweta and Shweir. They didn't chase together, so they had taken a detour to the front. He stood in front of the skinny man, blocking his escape route on the spot, together with Shweini behind them. The three of them had already surrounded the thin and weak man. Seeing this, a resolute expression appeared on the thin and weak man's face. Knowing that he wouldn't be able to escape this time, he could only land his sword light on an empty space, hatefully glaring at the three of them. Today, I'll fight you to the death. Even if I die, I won't let you have an easy time. Dual swords flying together, sword slaying flood dragon. With a shout, the thin and weak man didn't hesitate in the slightest. There was no longer any hope in his heart. His eyes emitted a deranged expression, and his hands formed a sword art, displaying his strongest sword art without hesitation. All the spiritual energy in his body poured into the dual swords without reservation. Wong Wong. The two golden flying swords shuddered as they received the massive amount of spiritual energy, emitting intense sword light that rapidly intertwined with each other. Golden light flickered, and a pair of golden scissors silently appeared, instantly enlarging. The scissors turned, not cutting towards Shweini, but towards Shweta on the left. This scissors was extremely powerful, having the aura of wanting to cut through the heavens. Carrying a golden light, it was incomparably fast, arriving before Shweta in an instant, the scissors cutting into the blood-red clouds beside him. Kacha! A light sound rang out. This strike was virtually the full power of the thin and weak man. When a late chi refinement cultivator who was only a step away from foundation establishment became vicious, it was rather frightening. Under the scissors, the golden light twisted, and the sticky blood-red clouds were actually cut into two. Shweta clearly hadn't expected such a thing to happen. His body within the blood-red clouds only had time to turn sideways, and his left arm was cut off. You're courting death. Shweini licked his lips, emitting a bloodthirsty light. The blood cloud banner in his hand spun, and the blood-red clouds that filled the sky immediately rushed towards the thin and weak man. A series of miserable screams rang out from within the blood-red clouds. In the blink of an eye, there was no sound. Crash! The blood cloud banner rolled, and the blood-red clouds were sucked into the banner like a whale sucking in water. Looking at the ground, not even the thin and weak man's corpse was left behind. It was clear that after the blood cloud banner swallowed him, the blood-red clouds inside grew even larger, and their power increased by a large margin. On the ground, only two golden flying swords and a storage pouch were left. Shweini walked forward and took the storage pouch in his hand. With a swipe of his hand, he broke the seal, and with a flash of light, a purple bamboo flute with overwhelming spiritual energy appeared in his hand. He sneered, "You really overestimate yourself. A mere rogue cultivator wants to possess such a treasure. Only I, Shweini, am worthy of possessing such a precious artifact embryo." With that, he turned to look at Shweta, seeing his severed arm. He frowned slightly. "Shweta, how are your injuries? Can you continue to fight?" Perhaps the first sentence of concern was just in passing, but the second sentence was his true meaning. "Don't worry, young master. As long as this subordinate returns to the sect, my arm will recover. Even if I fight now, it won't be a problem." "I definitely won't delay young master from collecting such an artifact embryo," Shweta said without hesitation. "That's right, young master. The Zither realm is truly mysterious. Any one of the artifact embryos here are rare treasures outside. As long as you refine it into a formation, it'll become a top-notch magic artifact. It's too precious. If you take it back, it'll definitely stabilize young master's position in the sect." Shweir cried out excitedly. Shweini only nodded slightly. A trace of darkness appeared on his face. Although I've found these treasures, I don't know where that de Brad is hiding. After searching for so many days, I still haven't found a trace of him. Humph. Even if I have to dig 3 feet into the ground, this young master will dig him out. He really hadn't forgotten about de for even a moment. He had a vengeful temperament. Although it was only because of a single pill art in the Zither Valley, it had already caused him to hold a grudge and want to kill him. As soon as he entered the Zither realm, he constantly searched for de figure, wanting to kill him. His intentions could only be described as vicious and ruthless. Speaking of which, in these past few days in the Zither realm, the situation that de had encountered before was also encountered by many cultivators. These strange existences, upon discovering an outsider, would immediately launch an attack without hesitation and were bound to kill the outsider. In the instant that they entered, who knew how many cultivators with slightly weaker cultivations died from this sudden attack? However, after killing them, their bodies would mysteriously dissipate and turn into essence chi that would rush into their Dharma treasures and fall to the ground. They were all different. Some used flutes as Dharma treasures. Some used zither as Dharma treasures. Without exception, these Dharma treasures were all Dharma treasures. High-quality Dharma treasures could be refined into powerful Dharma treasures at any time. Immediately, in the Zither realm, they didn't find the Luchi Zither. Instead, the cultivators fought and killed each other over these precious embryos. All kinds of fighting were extremely fierce, and the fight just now was only one of many. Young Master, we're doing our best to search, but the Zither realm is too big. It's also shrouded in fog, so we can't clearly find it, Shweta said calmly. Rumble. At this moment, the ground under their feet suddenly trembled violently. It was as if there was an earthquake, and the rumbling continued. Cracks appeared on the ground like a spider web, and as soon as they appeared, they immediately spread in all directions. From the cracks under the ground, traces of pitch-black, demonic chi crazily spewed out. The huge rocks in the surroundings were all shattered into pieces. A terrifying aura spread out like a tide, as if there was a terrifying, ferocious beast breaking free from its shackles and charging out of the ground. When Xuan Yi and the other two saw this, they all looked at each other in dismay. To be continued. If you want to know what happened after this, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 160. Not good, young master. Something is coming out from underground. Get out of the way quickly. Shweda's expression changed. He was a core formation cultivator. Although his cultivation level was only at the early stage of the core formation realm, and he wasn't as sturdy as those core formation cultivators who had advanced step by step, he was still a core formation cultivator. Earlier, he had been careless and lost one of his arms to that thin cultivator's sudden attack. However, he still had the keen spiritual sense of a core formation cultivator. Beneath the ground, he keenly sensed that there seemed to be a terrifying force struggling to break free from the shackles of the earth. This force was no less powerful than him. Furthermore, within this force, there was an extremely dense, demonic chi, as well as a strange grief and inexplicable sadness. No matter what it was, Shweta didn't think it was anything simple. Without even thinking, his expression changed as he shouted at Xuan. The blood cloud around him instantly gathered. Shweda's immortal treasure was not the blood cloud banner, but the 9 clouds heaven shroud. The cloud was a blood cloud, but the shroud was a transparent shroud like an ancient bell. This shroud wasn't just for protection, it could also be used against enemies. Once an enemy was trapped within the shroud, it could be used to refine the enemy within. It was extremely powerful. Earlier, he saw that the skinny cultivator was only at the late chi refinement stage. He didn't think that the skinny cultivator would be able to cause any trouble, so he didn't take it out. It was because of this that he lost an arm due to his carelessness. Now that he saw this, he took out his 9 clouds heaven shroud without hesitation. A transparent shroud appeared in his hand. He held it in his palm, and examined it carefully. This shroud was in the shape of a bell and was crystal clear. There were 9 blood-red clouds floating on it. Vaguely, there seemed to be a mysterious connection between the 9 clouds. It possessed great power. Shwetu quickly arrived beside Shweini and stood in front of him. He also took out a blood cloud banner similar to the one Shweini had. However, the banner in Shwetu's hands was much weaker than Shweini's. Not only did the number of blood-red clouds within the banner fall short, even the density of the blood-red color was far inferior. Shweini's was a supreme grade magic tool, while his was only a mid-grade magic tool that was close to a high-grade one. Of course, their power was incomparable. The 3 of them were shocked by the change in front of them. They used a blood cloud to wrap around themselves. They didn't dare to stay on the ground and quickly flew into the air. They floated in the air, but didn't leave immediately. Instead, they looked curiously at the violent change in the ground. He couldn't help but guess in his heart. Was there some powerful magic treasure that had appeared underground? With this thought in mind, he naturally didn't want to leave. Rumble! More and more cracks appeared on the ground, spreading outwards at a speed visible to the naked eye. Strands of black gas emerged from the ground at an even faster rate. Strangely, the black gas seemed to carry an endless sense of sorrow. Grieving for the heavens, grieving for the earth, grieving for all living things. The moment this sadness appeared, it spread out in all directions uncontrollably. Everyone who sensed this sadness, regardless of whether they were humans or plants that seemed to have no sentience, could not help but feel the same sadness. The plants let out a sad aura. For a moment, the surrounding heaven and earth seemed to darken. Sad, sad for an unfilial son, sad for an unvirtuous wife, sad for an unfinished country, sad. All things in the world are sad. A desolate, sorrowful voice came from underground. The voice seemed to contain all the sorrowful things in the world. The sadness was boundless and swept through heaven and earth. Rumble! Amidst the terrifying roar, the already cracked ground suddenly exploded. Countless rocks flew wildly in all directions, covering the sky and covering the earth. It was as if a huge volcano had suddenly erupted. The scene was terrifying. Just as the countless rocks flew out, a pitch-black figure shrouded in endless sorrow suddenly jumped out from underground. Standing in the midst of the flying rocks, his aura was even more sorrowful. A sense of sorrow seeped out from his body. Anyone who saw him couldn't help but feel the same way, evoking the endless sorrow in their hearts. Ha! Di-Shirtion, you're Di-Shirtion. Shweini was also affected by this terrifying sadness. He couldn't help but think of some sad things in the past. His nose felt sore, and he was about to cry. However, when he saw the appearance of the black-robed man, his whole body trembled, and he came back to his senses. At the same time, a trace of viciousness flashed through his eyes. He coldly smiled and said, "I searched high and low for you, only to find you without any effort. I didn't think that after searching for you for 10 whole days, you would be hiding underground. If you had continued to hide, perhaps I really wouldn't have been able to find you. Now, you're going to die with me. Be obedient and become one of the soul essences in my precious banner." When Shweini saw Di-Shirtion, his eyes were exceptionally red. His face became abnormally ferocious. He unfolded the blood cloud banner in his hand and waved it at Di-Shirtion. Voila! Rolling blood clouds immediately surged out from the banner and quickly gathered into a huge blood cloud. It covered an area of about 10 zhang in size and rushed toward Di-Shirtion. A thick smell of blood filled the air. Within the blood cloud, countless ferocious soul essences floated up and down, letting out waves of terrifying, strange cries. An awe-inspiring, evil aura. Sorrow. All living things are sorrowful. Di-Shirtion's eyes were filled with an undissolvable sorrow. His body emitted a sorrowful aura. There was no spirit, only an endless sense of sorrow. It was as if, in his eyes, there was nothing else but sorrow. His entire mind was completely immersed in sorrow. Seeing the sky full of blood clouds whizzing toward him, the sorrow in his eyes became even more intense. Suddenly, a jade light flew out from his body and floated in front of him. It was a jade zither full of demonic light. The jade zither emitted traces of sorrowful aura. Ding dong, ding dong. At this time, Tirtian seemed to be in a strange state. He was completely immersed in sorrow. His own consciousness seemed to have been replaced by this sorrow. He saw Shweini in front of him, but he didn't recognize them. He only felt the attack whistling toward him and instinctively placed his hands on the seven sins demonic zither in front of him. He had never learned the art of the zither before. After placing his fingers on the strings, his 10 fingers moved as smoothly as flowing water as they moved swiftly across the 9 strings. This stroke did not seem to have a melody, but when the sounds of the zither came out continuously and connected together, they strangely formed a melody. The melody did not have a name, but it moved according to the will of the heart. The endless sorrow from Sakura actually spread out along with the sound of the zither, causing the sound of the zither to have a charm and a unique state of mind. A kind of sorrowful sound of the zither rang out. This was a sad song. Walala! A gentle wind blew on the ground. The wind was also sorrowful. This wind seemed to be abnormally gentle, but when it blew against the blood clouds, the sadness contained in the wind seemed to possess an inconceivable power. It forcibly blocked the blood clouds that were whistling towards them. Not only that, it even seemed to want to push the blood clouds back. Sorrowful heaven, sorrowful earth, sorrowful immortals, sorrowful gods, sorrowful humans, sorrowful ghosts, and sorrowful demons. Tirtian's bleak voice came out of his mouth. The wind was blowing. It was crying. In the sky, a light drizzle fell. The sky was crying. The grass, trees, earth, and stones all dimmed. Everything on earth was sorrowful. Using his own sorrow to drive the zither music turned into his heart, stirring heaven and earth were sorrowful. No, it can't be like this. Why am I suddenly so sorrowful? No, this isn't my heart at all. Why is it like this? Shweini wiped his hand, and his hand was covered in tears. He couldn't help but be shocked. He knew very well that he had never wanted to cry or be sorrowful. However, when he heard the zither music, an inexplicable sense of uncontrollable sorrow welled up within him. He couldn't help but want to cry. It was as if in this moment his body was completely out of his control. It was so strange that when he looked at Tirtian, it was as if he were looking at a ghost. He had never imagined that such an extremely strange thing could happen to him in this world. Junior Sect Master, this zither music is too terrifying. I don't know why, but I'm so sorrowful that I want to kill myself. Blood 2's eyes were filled with shock and terror. The thing he didn't want to die the most was clearly death, but now, for some inexplicable reason, he was feeling so sorrowful that he wanted to kill himself and end his own life. Terrifying, too terrifying. Junior Sect Master, let's get out of here quickly, Blood 2 said in a trembling voice. Shweta said with a trembling voice. He didn't know what would happen if he continued to stay here. No, I can't leave at all. Shweini's face was filled with bitterness. He wanted to leave, but his body was rooted to the spot, and he didn't want to move. Sorrow, sorrow, sorrow. These 3 sorrowful words came out of Tirtian's mouth one after another. At this moment, he had been completely dominated by the desire to be sorrowful, and there was only sorrow in his heart. As these 3 sorrowful words came out of his mouth, the zither music under his hand became even more sorrowful. It reached a peak, and everything in the surroundings was enveloped in this sorrowful intent. The mountains and rocks shattered on their own, and the vitality of the grass and trees gradually disappeared. They had actually extinguished their own vitality in this sorrowful situation, leaving behind only a sorrowful aura. After 3 consecutive screams, Shweini and the other 2 involuntarily reached out their hands and slapped their own heads. Their hands contained powerful, true essence, so their heads were not made of steel. They were smashed into pieces on the spot. 3 lives were lost in an instant, and one of them was even a core formation cultivator. It could be imagined that Di Shurtian's current state was truly mysterious and unfathomable. Dead. Shueini and the other 2 had died by his hands in such a mysterious way. No, it should be said that he died because of his own grief. However, at the moment of Shueini's death, the strange jade pendant that he had been wearing around his neck seemed to have entered a bloody shadow. Then, the jade pendant emitted a gentle jade light and broke free. It turned into a white light and quickly fled far away from the strange place. In the blink of an eye, he rushed to an illusory door and plunged in without hesitation. In the blink of an eye, he had already disappeared. It was as if what had just happened had never happened. The jade pendant rushed out of the illusory door and directly left the realm of the zither. It also silently escaped into the distance. To be continued. If you want to know what happens next, please go to www.chijian.com and read more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 161. Sad, sad, sad. The sound of the zither stopped, and the purple king mark on Di Shurtian's forehead naturally shot out a beam of purple light, which fell on Shueini and the other 2. The strange thing was that only 2 of the 3 people's souls were taken out of the corpses and absorbed into the king mark. The 3 corpses were not spared, and were instinctively swallowed into the demon refining cauldron. The 7 sins demonic zither returned to his body. However, Di Shurtian's eyes were still filled with sorrow, and his body exuded endless sorrow. He walked forward step by step unconsciously and sighed 3 times. Like a cuckoo weeping blood, he walked without direction, as if he was just walking casually, and everywhere he walked, as long as it was within 10 meters of him. They were all eroded by this extremely dense sorrow, and they all exuded the same sorrowful aura. Wherever he walked, the sorrowful aura would spread. Di Shurtian's own mind seemed to have been lost and eroded. Speaking of which, this had to start from when he decided to integrate the power of desire of the 7 emotions and 6 desires into the demon vein. To be honest, his decision was a bit rash. One must know that the 7 emotions and 6 desires were an invisible force emitted by all living things in the world because they had consciousness and emotions. It could be said to be an obsession or a desire. Even the most powerful great divines would never be willing to touch such a thing because it was too evil and too mysterious. The power of desire was the obsession of countless people. Once controlled by the obsession, the consequences would be immeasurable and incomparably terrifying. The slightest mistake would cause one to be confused by the boundless desire, dominated by the obsession, and lose one's consciousness. Who knows? He might sink into oblivion forever, never to wake up again. In the past, it wasn't that there weren't people like Sakura who set their sights on the boundless power of desire. It was just that these people had basically all sunk into their desires. Otherwise, they would have become paranoid devils. Almost none of them had a good ending. When Di Shurtian made up his mind, he guessed that there might be danger, so he did not integrate the 7 emotions and 6 desires, and only extracted the power of sorrow to fuse with the demon vein. In the beginning, it was indeed fine. Everything was normal. Shattering veins, tempering veins, transforming veins, and finally, shaping veins. Every step was frightening, but not dangerous. The meridian transformation was to fuse the power of sorrow and the demonic meridian together, making them indistinguishable from each other. The meridian would be formed from the power of sorrow. When everything was done, the demonic vein that was formed turned into a demonic pitch-black color. These demonic veins were formed from solidified liquid. They were extremely slender and tough. After it was formed, Di Shurtian followed the instructions of the bloodline inheritance and sent the demonic vein out of the demon residence. One end was directly connected to the heart, and the other end was connected to the demon residence, so that the demon residence and the demonic vein were closely connected. Then, the demonic vein followed its original position from the head to the tail, and then back to the heart, the demon residence. Just like that, the first demonic vein could be said to have been formed. However, how could it be so easy to form a demonic vein with the power of desire? Almost as soon as the demonic vein passed through the entire body and fused with the demonic body, the demonic vein actually connected with the power of desire in the heavens and earth. The power of sorrow, of the 7 emotions and 6 desires suddenly surged into his body. The hidden power of sorrow in the demonic vein was triggered and exploded, rushing to his heart. Terrifying, huge, and mysterious. Even with Di Shurtian's mind, under this mysterious power of sorrow, he did not have the slightest ability to resist. He was immediately immersed in this state of sorrow, or rather, in his obsession with desire. His mind was almost irresistibly lost in it, sinking into it. And at that time, it was precisely when Shui Ini and the others arrived that he reacted, breaking out of the ground. Furthermore, this feeling of sorrow caused Shui Ini and the others to involuntarily end their own lives. However, the problem now was that Di Shurtian had already lost himself in the feeling of sorrow. This feeling of sorrow was an obsession that had existed for millions of years, or perhaps it could be said that it had always existed since ancient times. It gathered the sorrow in the hearts of countless living beings. Breaking through it might bring about inconceivable benefits, but if not, from today onwards, he would remain in this state. This was the hidden danger of fusing the power of desire into the demonic vein. Fortunately, he had only fused with one emotion. Otherwise, if he had fused with all 7 emotions and 6 desires, the current situation would not have occurred. Instead, his mind would have been crushed by the countless emotions and 6 desires, and he would have completely died. Outside the Zither domain, Qin Xian glanced at Shui Ini's piece of jade as it flashed through the air like lightning. His face could not help but change as he said, "It seems that an accident has happened to someone important in the Zither realm." His expression was very serious. From the moment he saw the piece of jade, he understood what had happened. He recognized that piece of jade. It was refined from hidden god jade, and it was extremely capable of nourishing the mind and resisting external devils. During times of danger, it was even capable of drawing one's primordial soul into it, so that it wouldn't be harmed. Such a good thing could be said to be a treasure that countless people in the cultivation world dreamed of. At a critical moment, it could temporarily save one's life. Unfortunately, good things were never plentiful. Only when they were rare could they show their preciousness. This sentence had always been a saying of wisdom. It was not wrong at all. The hidden divine jade was quite difficult to find in the cultivation world. It was extremely rare and could only be found in large jade mines or in some icy place. It was extremely rare. If one found a piece, they would all hide it like a treasure. To be able to possess such a treasure, the person who had just encountered misfortune was definitely not an ordinary person. "Father, will there be any problems like this?" Katomi could not help but frown slightly. She pursed her lips and asked softly, "No need to worry. When we spread the news of the groom search, we had already stated that once one enters the Guqin realm, life and death will be up to fate and one's own ability. Only those who are willing can come to our Guqin Melody Valley. Since they have come, they must know about this. No matter what happens, they cannot blame us. Even if something happens, we cannot be blamed on our Qin family." Qin Xian had long expected such a thing to happen and had prepared in advance. This way, even if something happened, the people behind these youths would not blame the Qin family. Yes, your father is right. The Guqin realm is originally full of danger. The Guqin realm's demonic spirits are all very powerful. Even if our Qin family members enter, they will not show mercy. If we encounter them, it will be a life and death battle. Only by defeating them can we obtain the magic artifact that will accompany us for life. As for other people, if they want to obtain the opportunity, how can there be no danger? Madame Qin also nodded and muttered, I wonder who will be able to find the green jade zither this time. Katomi raised her head and looked in the direction of the Guqin realm. Traces of reverie appeared in her eyes, as well as traces of confusion. At the same time, in a spacious mansion in the imperial capital, a tall noble girl wearing a fiery red dress and a veil on her face rushed into the mansion. Behind her, four maids anxiously chased after her. Bang! With a heavy sound, the door of the study was violently pushed open. The red-clothed girl unceremoniously stepped into the study. In the study, a young man in embroidered clothes was looking at the girl with a wry smile. The moment he saw her, it was as if he already knew that there would be such a result. "Royal sister, why didn't you tell me you were coming? I should have gone to welcome you," the young man in embroidered clothes said with a wry smile. "Humph. Wenwu, why didn't you tell me that something like this had happened? If I hadn't accidentally overheard your conversation today, how much longer would you have hidden this from me? Do you still treat me as your sister? Third brother actually sent people to kill you." The red-clothed girl's eyes were filled with anger. Clearly, she was very angry. The young man in embroidered clothes heard this and gently shook his head. "It has already happened. It's useless to talk about it anymore. Royal sister, don't worry. Since third brother attacked me first as his second brother, how can I let him do as he pleases? I've already made plans for this matter." There was a trace of certainty and confidence in his expression. "What plans?" The red-clothed girl couldn't help but become curious at this moment and immediately asked. "Since he started it, don't blame me for returning the favor." A trace of determination and ruthlessness appeared on the young man's face. He said coldly, "Third brother is only relying on the worship in the worship hall. I've already come into contact with those worship masters, so I won't be able to approach them at all. Since that's the case, I can only destroy them all. Let's see what else third brother can rely on." The young man in embroidered clothes was none other than Hua Wenwu, who had just returned to the capital. The red-clothed girl was China's first princess, Hua Yuer. They were blood-related siblings of the same father and mother. They had always been quite close. This time, when Hua Yuer heard that Hua Wenwu had been assassinated, she immediately rushed to the mansion angrily. Hua Yuer said with a strange expression, "Wenwu, don't you know that those old guys in the Hall of Worship are all cultivators who are superior to ordinary people? As for the rest of the cultivators, we don't have anything that can make them want to fight against the Hall of Worship. How can you destroy them?" There was an obvious look of disbelief in her words. Hua Wenwu raised his head and looked out of the study with a trace of awe in his deep eyes. He said, "Royal sister, don't worry. As long as the person I invite is willing to do it, those so-called masters in the worship hall will be destroyed in an instant. At that time, we should really let our good brother know who the real successor China is." He didn't know what kind of mentality he had, but he didn't say anything about Sakura. This was the biggest trump card in his heart. Other than himself, he absolutely wouldn't easily tell anyone else. Sad, sad, sad. In the realm of the zither, sorrowful sounds reverberated in the mountain forest. Thick traces of sorrow flowed. Every sound seemed to contain endless sorrow. Listening to it, it was exceptionally tear-inducing. A figure in a black robe, shrouded in this sadness, wandered unconsciously in the mountain forest. There was nothing else on his body except for sadness. The protagonist is sad, and I am sad too. I don't know if I have offended someone, but there seems to be a person in the book review who is constantly scolding others. Damn, I don't think I have ever attacked anyone before. Sigh. When it comes to scolding others, just one comment is enough. Why you have to post one comment after another, as if you are afraid that I will not be able to read it? Chapter 162. Wherever he went, the sorrowful aura would spread. Moreover, it could also corrode the surrounding objects, causing them to become sorrowful as well. It emitted a sense of sorrow that was the complete opposite of the original vitality. Di Shitian's mind had already been corroded by the boundless sorrow. He no longer had the slightest bit of consciousness. He could only instinctively wander around the mountain forest aimlessly as he sorrowfully spat out the word sorrow. With every word he spat out, the sorrowful aura on his body became even denser. Brother Zhang, quickly look, who is that? Could it be a foreign cultivator as well? I'm not sure. Looking at this person's behavior, it seems a bit abnormal. Could it be a madman? That's impossible. How could there be a madman in the Zither realm? Right at this moment, at a place not too far away from Sakura, two young cultivators were standing together, and they looked towards Sakura. Obviously, they were attracted by the situation of him wandering aimlessly in the mountain forest by himself, and they couldn't help but gather together and discuss in bewilderment. Obviously, they were very surprised. The fact that these two were able to persist until now in the Zither realm could be said to be the cream of the crop among cultivators. Moreover, in these 10 days, they had a deeper understanding of the mysteries of the Zither realm. The endless stream of strange attacks made them even more tired. The most terrifying thing was the battle between cultivators for those strange artifact embryos. These days, who knew how many people had already died from killing each other? Therefore, the strangeness of Di Shirtian's body immediately attracted the attention of these two people. No matter what, the two tool embryos that we worked so hard to obtain have been snatched away. Perhaps this person in front of us has tool embryos with him. I've heard that any one of these tool embryos can be sold for tens of thousands of spirit stones. Why don't we go rob others as well? That's right. Who cares if he's crazy or not? Let's rob first. This conversation had already revealed a lot of the invisible law of the immortal cultivation world where the strong preyed on the weak. In the immortal cultivation world, there were no great principles. Whoever had the biggest fist would be the one who spoke the truth. After the discussion, the two cultivators rushed toward Di Shirtian's position at the same time. They formed a sword gesture in their hands, ready to release the flying sword at any time. In the other hand, they clasped a few spirit talismans that glowed with spirit light. Everything was done smoothly, as if they were familiar with it. Unexpectedly, they were all late-stage Qi refining cultivators. Sad. Di Shirtian seemed to have reacted to the two cultivators who were pouncing towards him with ill intentions. He raised his head and glanced at them. His expression was still incomparably sorrowful as he once again softly uttered the word sorrowful. As these three words entered the ears of the two cultivators, they felt as if they had been struck by lightning. Their rapidly charging bodies strangely came to a halt. A trace of sorrow involuntarily appeared on their faces. Many sorrowful things that they had experienced in the past emerged in their minds. They unconsciously immersed themselves in these sorrowful memories. Their bodies emitted a sorrowful aura as they blankly stood in place without moving, immersed in their sorrowful state. Di Shirtian didn't make any other movements. He continued to aimlessly walk forward step by step, shuttling through the mountain forest. The two cultivators didn't notice his departure at all. The scene was extremely strange. At some unknown time, a cool breeze blew past. The two cultivators trembled and woke up. They looked around and then glanced at each other. They both saw a look of horror in each other's eyes. The situation just now was truly too strange. 4 or 5 days later, this scene was also encountered by many other cultivators. For a time, there was a rumor in the Zither realm that there was a strange madman who only knew how to say the word sorrowful. Moreover, as long as someone approached him, they would inexplicably fall into a sorrowful state. It was truly strange. For a time, he was given a nickname, Madman, in the Zither realm. As long as they heard sorrowful sounds echoing, cultivators would all take a detour. They didn't want to encounter him because once they did, they would strangely feel sorrowful. Then, they would be immersed in it and lose consciousness. At that time, if they encountered an enemy, they would be dead for sure. Therefore, most of the cultivators in the Zither realm kept a respectful distance from Di Shirtian. They were afraid of encountering him. In reality, as long as one's cultivation wasn't very high and one's state of mind wasn't extremely firm, they would be eroded by that sorrowful feeling. It was truly terrifying. Ding ding, ding dong, On the 23rd day, since Shirtian and the others entered the Zither realm, they didn't know how big the Zither realm was. Moreover, the sky was shrouded in fog, making it difficult to explore clearly in a short period of time. However, someone discovered that almost all the cultivators who entered were wandering in a strange mountain forest. There were also a large number of strange demon spirits in the forest. The weak ones of these demon spirits had the terrifying attack power of a late-stage Qi refinement cultivator. There were even foundation establishment cultivators and core formation cultivators. They were quite terrifying. What was even more terrifying was that many of them were gathered together. This way, it was even more difficult to deal with them. If they encountered them, it would be a battle to the death. During this period of time, countless cultivators had died in the hands of these strange demon spirits. In this cruel environment, those who survived in the end were almost all powerhouses. Everyone had undergone a fundamental transformation in this short period of time. Even their temperaments had changed to varying degrees. It could be foreseen that if they left the Zither realm, they would definitely become a generation of prodigies in the cultivation world in the future. There would be almost no problem for them to reach the core formation realm. They might even be able to break through to the nascent soul realm. Perhaps it was even possible for them to reach a higher level. At this moment, in the Zither realm, a burst of Zither music suddenly rang out. The moment it rang out, it covered the entire Zither realm. All the living beings in the Zither realm could hear it clearly. The Zither music was melodious and seemed to contain a natural and peaceful charm. It caused the atmosphere in the Zither realm to suddenly change. It became fresh and natural. The murderous aura that all the cultivators had because of the slaughter naturally dissipated in the Zither music, causing their nervous minds to unconsciously calm down. In the forest, the demon spirits that were scattered all over the place revealed an inexplicable expression in their eyes. They all quickly rushed in the direction of the Zither music. Many of the cultivators' expressions changed as they followed the Zither music. At this moment, Shirtian, who was wandering in an unknown corner, heard the Zither music. The natural and peaceful power of the Zither music fell on him. For some reason, the boundless sorrow that enveloped him unexpectedly dissipated a little. A trace of clarity faintly flashed in his eyes that had been filled with grief. His body suddenly stopped as he turned around and walked in the direction of the Zither music. As he listened, he followed the Zither music. In the Zither realm, everything changed because of this mysterious Zither music. Almost everyone was heading in the same direction. If one could see this scene clearly, they would find it strange. The Zither realm was very big. Most of it was made up of mountains and forests. In the center of the Zither realm, a huge pool appeared. This pool was very strange. First, the water in the pool was very different. Ordinary water was clear and pure. If it was a mountain spring, one could clearly see the sand and stones at the bottom. Even if it was turbid, one could still see the soil. Or perhaps it was ice-cold water that was constantly emitting cold air. Or it could be a hot spring that emitted hot air. However, the water in the pool was different from those kinds of water. The color of the water was very strange. It was a kind of seven-colored water. Light flowed through the pool as if it was a large dye that used a dye cloth. This light was sparkling and translucent. It was very mystical and made one feel very comfortable looking at it. It was as if one was looking at some kind of seven-colored glaze or jade. It was very beautiful. It could be said to be a beautiful fantasy. In the colorful light, wisps of faint water vapor rose. This pool was next to a big mountain. The pool was at the foot of the mountain. Behind the pool was a naturally formed karst cave. If one did not look carefully, one would not notice it. However, this karst cave was separated from the forest on the opposite side by the pool. On the surface of the ancient pond, there was a shocking scene. Mysterious figures, male and female, were either sitting cross-legged or standing. They did not sink into the water, and each of them held various musical instruments in their hands. There were zither, flutes, pipas, and so on. It looked like an exhibition of musical instruments. From time to time, there were figures dancing on the surface of the pool. They looked like phantoms. They looked very beautiful. One could not help but be immersed in it. However, there was one similarity, which was that they didn't seem to have the aura of humans at all. They didn't seem to be alive, but instead had traces of strange demonic aura. Their expressions were cold, without the slightest hint of emotion, as if they were born without emotions. It made one's hair stand on end. In the forest, along with the sound of the zither, demonic spirits followed into the pool from time to time. They vaguely covered the karst cave behind, as if guarding something. Today is that day of the year again. If there are no accidents, the zither music in the zither realm should sound again. Qin Xian looked in the direction of the zither realm. Standing in the purple bamboo forest, he sighed softly. He seemed to have known that some kind of change would happen in the zither realm. Father, why did our ancestor leave behind instructions that we are not allowed to take the things she left behind? Instead, we have to let outsiders go. Moreover, it depends on fate, Katomi said faintly. Her eyes were filled with puzzlement. Qin Xian's face turned solemn, and he said, "Shut up. Since the ancestor has made such arrangements, she naturally has her reasons. As the younger generation, we only need to follow her orders." Speaking of the ancestor, his expression became very serious. He actually scolded his beloved daughter on the spot. It was clear how important the ancestor was in his heart. Your daughter understands. Katomi also knew that she should not have such thoughts. She quickly admitted her mistake and said, 23 days have already passed. The deadline is in 7 days. I don't know if we can take the zither out this time. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 163. Whether or not we can obtain, it will depend on fate. If the time comes, it means that the verdant zither will be born. If the time doesn't come, then I'm afraid this time will be an illusion and we'll have to wait for the next opportunity. After all, obtaining the verdant zither is not easy. There are several obstacles, each of which is extremely difficult. Qin Xian revealed a wry smile and sighed. Let's not talk about anything else. Just the heavenly pool alone is extremely mystical and has been refined by our ancestors. It is even more incredible. In the zither realm, as long as the various trees, bamboo, jade, and other materials used to make musical instruments are placed in the pool, in a short period of time, they will condense into an artifact embryo and give birth to demonic spirits. It is not an easy task to pass by these demonic spirits. If the demonic soul could be broken by force, then even if you walk to the front of the green silk zither like this, if you're not the fated one, you won't even be able to touch it. He took a deep breath and said, Therefore, whether or not you can bring it out depends on the will of the heavens and fate. If the verdant zither is born, then someone will definitely be able to bring it out. The zither realm was the forbidden ground of the Qin clan. After so many years, how could the Qin clan not understand the various mysteries of the zither realm? It was a small space created by a great technique and was extremely mysterious. Without guidance, no one would be able to enter. It could be said that if the Qin clan was in trouble at any time, they could just hide inside the zither realm and their clan wouldn't be exterminated no matter what. However, the problem was that the zither realm wasn't completely under the Qin clan's control. The demonic souls inside would kill any outsiders they encountered. They wouldn't care if you were a Qin clan disciple or not. Therefore, the Qin clan couldn't live inside. If they did, they might die at the hands of the demonic souls. When it came to demonic souls, one had to talk about the heavenly pool. The celestial pond was the strange, seven-colored ancient pond in the center of the zither domain. The water in the pond was called the celestial pond demonic soul water. This water contained an inconceivable power and could fuse together with the zither domain. As long as you throw in the zither domain's wood, jade, and other materials that were used to make musical instruments, after a period of time, these materials would magically transform into weapon embryos and give birth to demonic souls. Those with strong demonic souls would have the ability to form their core, while those with weak demonic souls would have the ability to refine their chi. It all depended on the quality of the artifact embryo. Legend had it that the heavenly pool was originally more powerful, but for some reason, more than half of its power was sealed away, resulting in its current state. But even so, they could not be underestimated. In the Guqin realm, the sound of the Guqin was still clear, as if it was specially guiding the way for all those who were curious. First, it was the demon souls. In a short period of time, almost all the demon souls in the Guqin realm had gathered in the heavenly lake. The cultivator closest to the heavenly lake was also the first to arrive in front of the heavenly lake. As soon as he came out of the forest, he saw the mystical heavenly lake that was suffused with 7 colors. However, his eyes widened in an instant, almost popping out of their sockets. Deep fear appeared on his face. "My ancestor, why are there so many strange demonic souls? This, I'm afraid there are no less than 1,000 or 2,000 of them. What exactly is this place?" The cultivator looked ahead with a bitter expression. His body did not move at all, afraid that if he moved, he would be attacked by those demonic souls. He might have dared to attack 1 or 2 demonic souls, but now there were more than 1,000 of them. He did not have the guts to do so. He was afraid that anyone who stood in front of him would be instantly blasted into pieces. Bang, bang, bang. In the forest, a series of steady and rhythmic footsteps could be heard. It could be heard that every step that the person took was firmly on the ground. The time between each step was exactly the same. Perhaps even the distance between each step was exactly the same. Following the sound of footsteps, a heavy aura as heavy as Mount Tai rushed towards them. In the aura, there was a strong desire to fight with an indomitable aura. It made people feel as if they were about to suffocate, and even breathing was difficult. This was a kind of pure desire to fight. In the blink of an eye, he saw a man who was 2 meters tall. His muscles were perfectly distributed all over his body, and there was not a trace of fat on his body. Covered in a green martial artist's tight-fitting clothes, it directly set off the martial artist's perfect physique. His face was as sharp as a knife, and he was unusually determined. However, his face was covered with a beard, which made him look extremely rough. His 2 eyes were bright and full of spirit, with a hidden divine light. He only had a storage bag on his waist, and nothing else. He did not even have a weapon. He was barehanded, but he was already emitting a threatening aura. When this person walked out of the forest, he saw the heavenly lake in front of him and the thousands of demonic souls on the heavenly lake. His pupils constricted violently, but he suddenly opened them again and laughed loudly. Good. I came to the Guqin realm to see what kind of dangers there are in the Qin family's Guqin realm. These days, I've destroyed dozens of demonic souls, and it was very satisfying. I didn't expect there to be such a large group of demonic souls here. I'll use you to train my martial skills, and I might be able to reach a higher level. I'll step into a higher realm. A strong desire to fight rose from this person's words, as if he was not afraid of these demonic souls at all. Instead, his fighting spirit was high, and a martial artist dared to challenge any expert spread out. Martial cultivators, this was a unique aura that only martial cultivators had. This person was none other than Wu Wudi, who had walked into the Guqin realm for more than 20 days. He did not come in because of Katomi's marriage, but because he heard that there seemed to be considerable danger in the Guqin realm. So he deliberately came in. He wanted to use these dangers to train his martial skills and to comprehend a higher realm through battle. Martial cultivators, there was no retreat. Therefore, when he saw the many demonic souls in the heavenly lake, his first thought was not to retreat like the first cultivator who came in. Instead, the stronger they were, the more it aroused the martial artist's soul in his heart, and a strong desire to fight erupted. His eyes flickered as they swept over the thousands of demonic souls. When he swept his gaze over the demonic souls that even he could not see through and felt oppressed by the demonic souls, his eyes burst out with traces of light. "Sir, it's here. We're here." The sound of the Guqin is coming from here. Just as Wu Wudi's fighting spirit was high, a clear and pleasant voice came from the mountain forest. This voice was actually a woman's. Ha ha, Mayor, it seems that we're not the first to arrive. A laugh that made people feel no disgust rang out. Amidst the laughter, another group of people walked out from Chief Lin's side. This time, it wasn't just one, but 5 in a row. The one in the lead was a handsome young man dressed in white. He held a fan in his hand, and there was a painting of mountains and rivers on it. He swayed it gently, showing off his elegance. Every move he made was extremely natural and perfect. If he walked on the streets of the secular world, he would probably attract the admiration of countless young girls who were yearning for love. Behind him were 4 maidservants, each with a different temperament. Moreover, there were 2 pairs of twins, which looked very eye-catching. However, the 4 women's gazes were always on the young man in front of them, as if there was no other man in their eyes other than the young man. It was really enviable. Speaking of which, this young man was the young master of Aquamoon Heavenly Lake that Qin Xian had noticed before, Shui Wuhan. The 4 maidservants behind him were Mei, Lan, Zhu, and Zhu. At this time, they had followed the sound of the Guqin to this place. Shui Wuhan came out and turned to look at Wu Wudi. She nodded with a smile and said, I am Shui Wuhan. I wonder if we could be friends. Her words were filled with a hint of closeness. It was as if she wanted to be friends. Shui Wuhan, the young master of Aquamoon Heavenly Lake? When Wu Wudi heard that, his eyes flashed, and he said in a low voice. He also nodded, neither accepting nor rejecting. After a glance, he looked at the group of spirits in front of him again, as if he was calculating where he should kill his way in. This person really doesn't know what's good for him. The young master wants to be friends, but he dares to put on airs. When Zhu saw Wu Wudi's expression, she frowned and snorted. She was indignant on behalf of her young master. When Shui Wuhan heard that, she closed the fan in her hand and said with a smile, Zhu, don't be rude. I've said it before. If I treat people and things in the same way, others will treat me in the same way. That's what friends are. I, Shui Wuhan, love the most in this life to make all kinds of friends. I wonder if you can tell me your name? The last sentence was said to Wu Wudi. Wu Wudi. As soon as the 3 words were spoken, a strong battle intent surged. Wu Wudi, I've heard of you. I think you're a martial cultivator. I heard that martial cultivators and sword cultivators used to be the strongest cultivators in terms of combat power. I don't know who's better. If we go out, I'd like to compete with you to see who's better. Just at this moment, before Shui Wuhan could say anything, an arrogant sword intent soared into the sky. A young man exuding a profound arrogance walked out of the forest. He was like an unsheathed sword, his entire body emitting sword intent. He looked at Wu Wudi with a hint of provocation. This person was none other than Lu Xiling of the Xuanxin sword sect. He was extremely arrogant. I'll accompany you anytime. Wu Wudi glanced at him with a hint of disdain in his eyes, but he immediately looked away. In just a short time, almost all of the strongest cultivators in the Zither realm had gathered in front of the Heavenly Lake. Furthermore, after them, other cultivators who were lucky enough to survive appeared one after another. One by one, they arrived in front of the Heavenly Lake. Gradually, the number of cultivators who had gathered began to increase. Before long, there were more than 100 cultivators. This was about half of the survivors in the Zither realm. The rest were still arriving. Sad, sad, sad. 3 sorrowful sighs rang out, and a desolate aura suddenly appeared and reverberated in the air. As soon as the 3 sorrowful sighs rang out, the expressions of most of the cultivators around the Heavenly Lake changed dramatically. To be continued. If you want to know what happens next, please go to www.chijian.com. I support the author. I support the original reading. Chapter 164. Amidst the sorrowful atmosphere, a pitch-black figure slowly walked out of the forest. His aura was abnormally gloomy, and the only thing that could be felt was sorrow. Why is this madman here as well? This is going to be troublesome. I heard that this madman is very strange. The aura he emits can make people involuntarily feel sad and enter a strange state of sadness. Moreover, those who dare to attack him all die in a strange way. They don't die at the hands of the enemy, but one by one, they commit suicide. I heard that this person is called Deshirtion. He once took out 2 bottles of monkey wine in the Zither Valley to buy pill arts and pill recipes. If he could take out such precious monkey wine so casually, his identity must not be simple. He's fine outside, but I don't know why, but when he entered the Zither realm, he went crazy. When this madman comes, we're going to be in trouble. Ancestor, please don't let him say the word sorrowful. If he says sorrowful, we're going to be in trouble. Seeing Sakura walking out of the forest and arriving in front of the heavenly lake, almost half of the cultivators hid far away with fear on their faces. During this period of time, the news about Sakura had already spread like wildfire, and some superficial information about him had also been spread. However, they only knew about what had happened in the Zither Sound Valley, and nothing else was known about him. Now, he had become a person that everyone was afraid of and kept a respectful distance from. During this period of time, the number of cultivators who died at the hands of Deshirtion was not small. They died in an extremely strange way. Almost all of them died by their own hands. They committed suicide with a sorrowful look on their faces. Such a scene made people shudder. Who would dare to approach him? If it wasn't for the fact that there was something strange about the heavenly lake and that it might be the biggest secret of the Zither realm, these people would have turned around and left as usual. They wouldn't have stayed for even a moment. What a heavy sense of sorrow. Deshirtion only stood quietly by the side of the heavenly lake. A rare trace of clarity appeared in his eyes amidst the endless sorrow. He listened to the melodious zither music from the heavenly lake, feeling the natural and peaceful aura of the zither music. He did not move at all. Although he stood still, he did not wander around in grief like he did in the past. This was the first time such a situation had happened since he was eroded by the endless grief contained in the pulse of grief. It was very different from the rest. The other cultivators tried to avoid Deshirtion, but Wu Wudi, who was closest to him, did not. He cultivated the martial Tao and walked the path of martial arts cultivation. Martial arts cultivation was a cultivator who dared to fight any powerful thing and did not submit to anything. If one did not even face it and directly retreated, they would never be able to understand the true meaning of martial arts cultivation. Therefore, others retreated, but he did not. He allowed the wisps of sorrow to spread and land on his body. Feeling the sadness in it, his body could not help but tremble. With an unusually serious expression, he spat out a sentence. His gaze towards Sakura was suddenly different. Although the sadness was strong, how could the sadness that was naturally emitted now corrode Wu Wudi's firm heart as a martial artist? But it also brought him a different kind of shock. Deshirtion's arrival not only shocked Wu Wudi, but also caused Shui Wuhan and Lu Xiling to look sideways at the same time. They unconsciously focused their attention on him. It didn't take long for all the remaining cultivators in the Zither realm to gather in front of the celestial pond. There weren't many of them. Over the past few days, there had only been about 200 cultivators. The rest had all perished in the Zither realm. However, although most of the cultivators had arrived, the melodious sound of the guqin in the air was crisp and pleasing to the ear. It was natural and peaceful, and no one had the urge to attack. It was as if the thought of fighting to the death had not arisen in them at all. They just quietly listened to the sound of nature and could not help but be intoxicated by it. Ding dong. The sound of the guqin stopped here. The originally peaceful atmosphere gradually dissipated in the air with the sound of the guqin. When the sound of the guqin stopped, Deshirtion's eyes, which had regained some clarity, immediately began to sink into depravity again. Slowly, he was about to be covered by that irresistible sorrow again. Instinctively, a kind of irritation surged in his heart. A kind of destructive fear surged in his heart. His eyes looked toward the depths of the heavenly lake, and a strong sense of possessiveness flashed in his eyes. Find it. Find the sound of the guqin. Find the sound of the guqin. The last trace of clarity in Di Shirtian's eyes told him instinctively that he had to find the sound of the guqin. He had to find the sound of the guqin just now. Otherwise, he would be in great danger. He would be destroyed and consigned to eternal damnation. This kind of fear and strong desire immediately made him raise his head abruptly. He opened his mouth and let out a loud roar. This roar was not the long roar of a human, but the sorrowful roar of a tiger. As the tiger roar came out, circles of invisible ripples spread out instantly. The sound waves spread out in all directions like a tide. With him as the center, there were traces of distorted ripples in the air. On the ground, all the grass, trees, soil, and stones bounced up in an instant and exploded. Even the ground beneath his feet seemed to tremble. The domineering tiger's roar instantly reached the ears of all the cultivators. All the cultivators' faces changed. They became abnormally pale, and their bodies trembled violently. Their eyes were filled with shock as they looked at Di Shirtian. Bang, bang, bang. This tiger's roar targeted the demonic souls in the heavenly lake. As long as the demonic souls were below the foundation establishment stage, they all exploded and dissipated on the spot. Their soul essences rushed into their respective musical instruments. In almost an instant, the number of demonic souls in the heavenly lake was reduced by half. Then, a trace of incomparable determination appeared in Di Shirtian's eyes. This determination was something that the endless sorrow in his body could not cover up. It was abnormally crazy. His body shot out like a sharp arrow from a bow. He dashed forward and stepped into the water of the heavenly lake. The water of the heavenly lake was able to withstand the terrifying power contained in this step. Immediately, a rainbow-colored pillar of water shot up into the air. Step by step, Xiao Chun stepped on the surface of the water, causing waves of terrifying loud noises to erupt from a pool. At an unknown time, numerous pitch-black blades had appeared in a flash beside Xiao Chun. They quickly revolved around Xiao Chen's body and danced around him in a mysterious trajectory. Looking at the number of demonic mistblades, Xiao Chun had already broken through to 20. It seemed to be flying in the air without any pattern, but it was protecting him from head to toe. In an instant, the 20 demon mistblades around Di Shirtian flew up and down. Blade light flashed around him, making him look like a porcupine. His eyes flashed with madness and sorrow. He looked like he would kill any god or Buddha that stood in his way. Without hesitation, he charged towards the countless demonic souls. Trespassers of the heavenly lake, die. In the middle of the demonic souls, there were 3 demonic souls with exceptionally dignified auras. They looked like a man and 2 women. The 2 women were holding a zither and a pipa. The man was holding a purple drum in his hand. Judging by the aura of the musical instruments in their hands, it was obvious that they were not ordinary instruments. The quality of the instruments was even higher. However, their expressions were cold and emotionless. Seeing Di Shirtian charging ferociously towards them, the 3 demonic souls shouted without holding back. Their eyes were filled with killing intent. Kill! 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 The demonic souls in the heavenly lake moved in an instant. Streaks of killing intent fell on Di Shirtian like sharp arrows. They attacked with their hands. All kinds of musical instruments sounded at the same time. The sound of the pipa, the zither, the flute, and all kinds of musical instruments could be heard at this moment. Moreover, when these sounds came out, they turned into sound blades of various sizes. They bombarded Di Shirtian together. One could imagine the scene. With so many demonic souls forming sound blades to attack together, there were thousands of them. They were like heavenly girls scattering flowers, covering the sky and earth. Even if there was a mountain in front of him, it would be cut into countless pieces by these sharp sound blades. The terrifying killing intent seemed to have frozen the air around them. Zither sound, I need to find zither sound. There was only one thought in Di Shirtian's mind. Facing the whistling attack, he did not dodge at all. He raised his head crazily, and the demonic chi in his body surged to his throat like a tide. Roar! An earth-shattering tiger roar rang out once again. This tiger roar contained a huge amount of demonic chi. This roar was even more terrifying than the previous one. The surrounding water seemed to have been thrown with countless bundles of explosives. It exploded with a loud bang. Countless water pillars shot up into the sky. All of the sound waves spread out, and in an instant, the sound waves turned into blades. The sound blades that were as thin as cicadas' wings were pitch black. After they were formed, they immediately attacked the earth-shattering sound blades. Bang, bang, bang. Roar. Before the tiger roar ended, the second one followed. At this moment, the demon refining cauldron in the demonic abode in his body seemed to have been injected with a stimulant. It spun crazily at an unprecedented speed, bringing out a sparkling belt of light around the cauldron. A vortex appeared. A terrifying, devouring force was emitted, crazily absorbing all the energy around his body. Then, the energy was converted by the demon-refining cauldron and poured into his body through the demonic veins. Fierce, ferocious. These were no longer enough to describe how terrifying Di Shirtion was at this moment. He, who had sunk into madness and sorrow, had formed his first demonic vein. In the state of unconsciousness, he was unbelievably fierce. Tiger roars came one after another, and countless sound blades swept out in all directions. When they collided with the sound blades released by the demonic souls, it was as if an ocean had crashed into a river. In an instant, the sound blades were crushed. Countless sound blades were destroyed on the spot. Furthermore, the sound blades formed by the tiger roar pressed down on the demonic souls like a tidal wave. The air seemed to be twisting, and the surface of the water was constantly exploding. The terrifying scene was truly terrifying to the point that it could make any core formation cultivator's face turn pale and their mind tremble. Even a nascent soul cultivator, in front of such a crazy Sakura, would have to temporarily avoid the sharp edge. At this moment, Di Shirtion was invincible. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 165. Di Shirtion is indeed Di Shirtion. Not only is his name domineering, but his actions are even crazier. What a powerful tiger's roar. Wu Wudi's eyes lit up, and he couldn't help but laugh loudly. He shouted with fighting spirit. How can I let you have all the glory? Firmament palm. Wu Wudi did not fear the terrifying battle in front of him at all. Instead, his warrior soul exuded an even higher fighting spirit. His body moved, and he used position swapped to land in the heavenly lake. With a twist of his hands, he used a strange move and grabbed in front of him. Instantly, a rainbow-colored stream of water was sucked out of the lake and brought to him. With a turn of his palms, the water flow mysteriously turned into a rainbow-colored cloud. Then, as Wu Wudi pushed forward, the cloud pressed forward layer by layer like it could topple mountains and overturn seas. The concept of pushing clouds and fog filled this palm, as if it could really push away the clouds in the sky. His aura was vigorous and boundless. Under the firmament palm, dozens of demonic spirits were blasted into pieces on the spot. They turned into countless essences that rushed into the weapons they'd used in life. Then, they fell vertically into the heavenly lake. Sky-shattering fist. Wu Wudi displayed the powerful martial body of a martial cultivator. Without using any weapons, he clenched his hands into fists and punched forward steadily. Each punch didn't look fast, but there was a hidden intent that could shatter the heavens. Moreover, his fists contained fist intent. Only a fist with intent could be called a martial technique. Any enemy's courage would be suppressed by this intent that could shatter the heavens. It wasn't just intent. It also contained a vast and terrifying power. Martial cultivators didn't have weapons in their hands. Their entire body was the best weapon. Every punch, and kick contained terrifying power. Every part of their body could turn into a terrifying weapon at any time. As soon as he entered the heavenly lake, he'd shattered no less than 10 monster spirits. The strength of a martial cultivator was on full display. Brother D and Brother Wu have both made a move. How can I, Shui Wuhan, stand here and watch? When Shui Wuhan saw this, she smiled faintly and soared into the sky. The mountain and river fan in her hand suddenly opened, and the picture in the fan was clearly displayed. A beautiful scenery of mountains and rivers was condensed into this picture and fell into the fan. It was as if it really included the mountains and rivers of the world. The mountain river fanned at the monster spirits in the heavenly lake. Immediately, a steep mountain that was originally drawn on the fan suddenly separated from the picture as it shone with a strange light. Boom, boom, boom. The originally illusory mountain mysteriously appeared in the air, turning into a huge divine peak. In just a few breaths of time, the divine peak violently expanded. In the blink of an eye, it had become several dozen meters tall. It shone with an earthen yellow light and gave off a heavy, vast presence that pressed down on the world. The atmosphere under the mountain seemed to have solidified. It was as if the sky was collapsing. Almost all the spirits of the beasts in the lake were under the pressure of the mountain. It was as if they were going to exterminate all the monster spirits in one fell swoop. This kind of spinning was really not small. You're not the only ones with skills. Look at my earth-splitting sword. Lu Xiling of the profound Heartsword sect saw that everyone was making a move. Moreover, each one was stronger than the other. He liked to stand in the place with the most attention. How could he be willing to show weakness at this time? He sneered and took out the ancient sword on his back. The blade of the sword was pitch black, and he slashed towards the heavenly lake. When sword cultivators fought, they were not like immortal cultivators who used flying swords to fight. It looked as if they could behead someone from 1,000 miles away. They were very direct. They did not use flying swords to fight. Instead, they used swords to fight. The sword was their companion. How could they let it leave their side? When the sword was swung, the sword chi was like a rainbow. It wrapped around the ancient sword and formed a condensed sword light that connected the heavens and the earth. The sword slashed down from afar. It was a sharp sword intent that could cut the earth in half. Kill. Everyone, let's attack together. There are so many monster spirits. If we kill them all, how many embryos can we get? Kill. These cultivators have been following Wu Wudi's lead from the start. With a loud roar, the 200 cultivators gathered in the vicinity immediately used their various mystiques. Some threw out powerful spirit talismans, some formed hand seals, some used spiritual spells, some released flying swords, some took out immortal treasures, and others attacked the demon soul. Qinin found Qinin. Dishirtion did not care about the others. His eyes were fixed on the heavenly lake. He rushed forward madly. Everything in front of him was his enemy. They were all targets he wanted to destroy. The earth-shattering sound blades tore through the air, wanting to tear all the monster spirits in front of him to pieces. There was only one thought in his mind. For a moment, the heavenly lake was filled with terrifying auras. Although the monster spirits did not have consciousness, most of them could not withstand the fierce attacks of Dishirtion and the others. Wu Wudi, Shui Wuhan, and Lu Xiling's attacks were quite frightening. It was definitely not something an ordinary demonic soul could withstand. Trespassers of the heavenly lake die. The eyes of the man in the middle of the 3 demonic souls were filled with killing intent. The purple drum in front of him fell into the water. He held 2 drum hammers in his hands and let out a cold cry. He raised the drum hammer in his right hand and slammed it down on the purple drum. Dong! An earth-shaking drum sound suddenly rang out from the purple drum. This drum sound was simply terrifying to the extreme. Ripples visible to the naked eye were emitted from the drum. The sound was like thousands of thunderous roars in the sky. In the air, not only were there sound waves, but there were also terrifying explosive sounds, densely packed and continuously resounding throughout the world. It was so loud that the heavens and earth lost their sound. The innumerable sound blades that Tion released actually collapsed one by one under the sound of the drum. They returned to nothingness. The sword light that could split open the earth was also shaken to the point of collapse, turning into sword chi. The sword chi then dissipated into nothingness. The divine peak that flew out from the mountain and river's fan trembled violently, and the divine light on it trembled. Even the divine mountain seemed to be disintegrating. Almost all the cultivators felt as if they had been struck by lightning at this moment. Ding dong! The monster spirit holding the zither brushed the zither. In an instant, the sound of the zither became ear-piercing. It was so sharp that it seemed to pierce the souls of those who heard it. More than half of the cultivators spat out blood. Their bodies trembled violently, and they were thrown back. Their faces were pale. Clang, clang. Before the sound of the zither faded, the sound of the pipa rang out again. This was like adding oil to the fire. The divine mountain trembled violently and shattered. It turned into a ray of yellow light and flew into the mountain and river fan. From this, it could be seen that these three demonic souls were definitely the strongest amongst the demonic souls. Each of them had only attacked once before they were able to instantly neutralize all of the attacks. Such strength could be said to be extremely frightening. It was certain that each of the three demonic souls possessed a terrifying strength that was no less than that of a core formation cultivator. Chinin, I want to find Chinin. No one can stop me. The madness in Tian's eyes grew stronger. The sadness on his body grew stronger. The clarity in his eyes was almost covered by the sadness again. It was as if he knew that if he was covered by it, he would never be able to return to normal. He would fall into oblivion and be destroyed. Facing the terrifying monster spirits, he did not retreat at all. The sadness on his body swept through the world. Out of nowhere, a pitch-black long saber appeared in his hand. Stepping on the water, he felt extremely heavy. With a wave of his long saber, the demonic mist blades flying around him turned into sharp cold lights, launching their strongest attacks on the demonic spirits in front of him. There was only one thought in his mind, and that was to rush over and kill everything in front of him. He wanted to rush out of the heavenly lake and into the Kar's cave. Bang, bang, bang. The demon mist blades were a kind of sharp offensive power that Tion created himself. Their sharpness was their specialty. Under Tian's command, they instantly cut through dozens of monster spirits in front of him. However, these monster spirits did not have any consciousness. They did not care about the attacks that were coming at them. They only knew how to attack Tion with the most ferocious attacks. Therefore, when they were destroyed, rays of sharp sound blades appeared in front of him like lightning. Bang, bang. The black saber slashed forward, blocking all the sound blades that were attacking his vital points. As for those that were not vital points, he did not care about them at all. Step by step, he walked forward firmly. With every step he took, the monster spirits in front of him were destroyed. On Tion's body, there were wounds all over his body. With his body that was not inferior to the martial body, these wounds were not deep. Although they were bleeding, they did not affect him much. Bathed in blood, he walked forward step by step. His entire body was shrouded in madness and endless sorrow. He was like a demon god in the world. His resolute mind did not allow him to retreat at all. Trespassers of the heavenly lake die. That male demon spirit holding the drum was attracted by Tion's crazy action and once again spat out the same sentence coldly. The drum hammer in his hand once again hit the purple drum. Dong! Almost all the power in this hit was directed at Tion. His body trembled violently. At this moment, Tion's internal organs seemed to be shattered by the sound of the drum. His chi and blood surged, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Find a zither sound. Find a zither sound. He must find a zither sound. Crazy thoughts kept ringing in his mind. A terrifying light shot out from his eyes. Domineering, crazy, sorrowful, vicissitudes, etc., intertwined together, it was incomparably terrifying. He looked crazily at the monster spirit that was hitting the drum. In the demon palace in his body, the demon chi in the demon refining cauldron was like a long black river. It followed the demon vein that was connected to the demon palace and rushed out with a roar. Chapter 166. While the demon refining cauldron was rotating, it was also extracting a huge amount of essence from the corpses that were absorbed by the cauldron regardless of the consequences. This essence was only roughly refined, and a small part of it was refined into demonic chi, while the majority was only roughly refined before being directly thrown out of the cauldron. It should be known that only by refining into demonic chi could it truly become Sakura's own demonic chi. This type of demonic chi could be quickly recovered even if it was depleted. But if it was not refined, then it was truly used up and could never be recovered. It was a complete exhaustion. At this time, Tian did not care about this at all. He continued to extract essence chi from the corpses and into his body through the demonic vein. The roaring demonic chi was directly poured into the pitch-black blade in his hand without hesitation. The black blade was a magic tool. It was made from millennium black iron and various materials from the immortal realm. It could be considered an upper-middle-grade magic tool. It was also a weapon. It was enough to be used by cultivators below the core formation stage. Now, Sakura had unreservedly poured almost all of his demon primordial energy into the black blade. The blade of the black blade suddenly burst forth with an extremely intense black blade light. The blade trembled unceasingly, issuing a rapid blade cry. The sound of the blade was accompanied by a sorrowful whimper, as if it could feel that it was about to be destroyed. If anyone dares to stop me, then they will die. There was only one thought in Sakura's mind, and that was to kill his way through the heavenly lake and into the Karst cave behind the heavenly lake at all costs. Driven by this thought, he didn't reserve any of his demonic primordial energy and poured it all into the black blade. Not only the demonic primordial energy, but also the infinite sadness he emitted. When the power in the black knife reached a peak, it instantly flew out of his hand and turned into a black lightning bolt. It was like a meteor catching up with the moon. It appeared in front of the chest of the man, playing the drum at an incredible speed. Dong! The male demonic spirit also had the cold indifference to life that the other demonic spirits had. It was as if they were born to expel all invaders from the Zither realm. As long as they could kill the enemy, even if they had to sacrifice their own lives, it was the same. Therefore, when they saw the black blade flying through the air, the two drumsticks in the male demonic spirit's hand struck at the same time, heavily smashing the purple drum. Immediately, the two drum beats seemed to merge into one, like a thunderous roar. Around the drum, a series of sonic booms exploded as the ferocious sound waves surged out in all directions like a tidal wave. More than half of the attack released by the drum was directed towards Tian. A small part of it rushed towards the black blade. Obviously, it wanted to destroy the black blade as well. However, the demonic spirit's plan was obviously miscalculated. Some of the attacks that were directed towards Tian were blocked by the demonic mist blade. The rest were blocked by the Seven Sins demonic zither, which automatically protected its master. It released sound waves to block for a while, but it was still unable to completely block the terrifying sound waves from the drum. The sound waves were blasted back into the body, and only then did the real attack hit him. The strong demonic spirit's body trembled involuntarily. He spat out blood, and there were traces of flesh in the blood. It was obvious that this drum had injured Tian's lower back. However, while it injured Tian, the demonic spirit did not have it easy either. After the black blade collided with the terrifying power that exploded from the drum, its speed did not decrease at all. The blade emitted endless sadness and broke through the void in front of it. It was as if it was riding the wind and breaking the waves, and quickly arrived in front of the demonic spirit. Bang! After all, the black blade was only a slightly above mid-grade ritual implement. It was not a top-grade ritual implement that could be compared to a true ritual implement. It was also not a true ritual implement. The demonic chi and sadness that Tion poured into the blade was almost unbearable for the black blade. At that time, it let out a terrifying cry. Now, it was under the attack of the drum. When the black blade arrived in front of the demonic spirit, it had almost completed its mission. The blade could no longer hold on. With a loud bang, it was as if an atomic bomb had been thrown. The terrifying power contained in the blade suddenly exploded. The power of this explosion was not inferior to that of a core formation cultivator's self-destruction. In fact, it was even more terrifying. The black blade shattered into countless pieces. Like a heavenly maiden scattering flowers, it was incomparably sharp. It blasted into the bodies of all the demonic spirits nearby. Those that were slightly closer were immediately torn into pieces. The drum-beating demon soul was the first to bear the brunt of the explosion. He was completely enveloped by the power of the explosion. In the blink of an eye, over 100 fragments landed on his body. These fragments contained the terrifying power of the explosion. When they landed on him, they basically cut through his body like tofu. Countless wounds immediately appeared on his body. Its entire body was like a tattered piece of clothing. Even half of its head was blown off in the explosion. This kind of injury was enough to kill it on the spot. Boom! With a crisp sound, countless cracks appeared on the demonic spirit's body. Its entire body was completely torn apart. It turned into wisps of spiritual chi. Like swallows returning to their nest, it merged into the purple drum. It was not only the demonic spirit. The two demonic spirits beside it, one holding a pipa and the other a guqin, were also in trouble. Wounds appeared on their bodies. Guqin, I need to find Guqin. The demonic spirits that were blocking in front of him were all destroyed, and the trace of clarity in the Sakra's eyes became even weaker. Without even thinking, his body quickly rushed forward, and at the same time, as if by instinct, he kept all the weapon embryos along the way into his storage bag. Moreover, it did not affect his speed in the slightest. Countless afterimages appeared behind him as he rushed straight into the karst cave behind the heavenly lake. Ah, this feels good. Kill. Wu Wudi looked up to the sky and laughed, his heroic spirit rising. Seeing that Sakra had forcefully opened a path, his eyes couldn't help but brighten. He rushed towards the group of spirits and unleashed all kinds of powerful martial skills without holding back, entangling the female spirit with the zither on the spot. At this moment, the others didn't hesitate at all and unleashed all kinds of trump cards one after another. Shui Wuhan continuously fanned the mountain and river fan in her hand. From time to time, a torrential river would roll over. From time to time, a divine mountain would fall. All kinds of attacks were used in the mountain and river fan. It could be said to be an incredible treasure, a Dharma treasure. This was a real Dharma treasure. Moreover, it definitely had a history. Lu Xiling's sword radiance constantly slashed down, exploding with sharp sword will and destroying the demonic spirits one after another. However, these demonic spirits were all unafraid of death. Under the crazy counterattack, more than 100 of the 200 cultivators fell in a short period of time. Even Wu Wudi and the others had wounds of different sizes on their bodies. Tion used the destructive power of the self-explosion to kill the 3 strongest demonic spirits and lightly injure the 2 female demonic spirits. At that moment, none of the demonic spirits could stop him. He stepped on the water like a flickering shadow, exuding a strong sense of sorrow. In an instant, he passed through the obstruction of the remaining 2 strongest demonic spirits and crossed the heavenly lake in one fell swoop. The pitch-black karst cave fell into his eyes clearly. Enter the cave, I must enter the cave. Seeing the karst cave, Tian's eyes, which were gradually covered by sorrow, suddenly flashed with a trace of clarity. Without hesitation, he rushed into the cave. The entrance of the karst cave looked like the mouth of a ferocious beast, as if it would swallow people at any time. The entire entrance seemed to be covered by a thin layer of black gauze. It made it impossible for people to see through the black gauze and see what was inside. Whoosh, whoosh. Bursts of strange wind howling came from the cave. It sounded even more eerie. The people who heard it could not help but feel a sense of fear in their hearts. There was a sinister aura in the cave. The howling of the wind was like the breathing of some ferocious beast. Anyone who stood at the entrance of the cave would hesitate for a moment. They would carefully weigh the pros and cons. However, D. Chertion did not. As soon as he came to the entrance of the cave, he did not hesitate at all. His figure passed through the black gauze in front of the cave like lightning and rushed in. The black gauze at the entrance of the cave did not dissipate because someone passed through it. It rolled gently a few times and then recovered. It looked as if no one had passed through it at all. It was very strange. After entering the cave, the scene in front of him suddenly changed. It was not pitch black like the entrance of the cave. Instead, this car's cave was made of some unknown material. The surrounding stones emitted faint blue light. This light was naturally emitted from the surrounding stone walls. The blue light flickered and illuminated the things in the cave very clearly. As long as people with a little cultivation entered this place, they would be able to see the things around clearly. In front of him was not a straight passage, but a series of 9 forks. Every single one of these 9 forks looked almost the same, and it was hard to tell what was different about them. The auras that they emanated were identical to one another, making it hard for one to tell which path they should take. Even the sharpest of minds would have to think twice before making a decision. However, Sakura seemed to have sensed something. After he entered, his figure still didn't stop as he skimmed into one of the forks. His speed was not slow in the first place, and in this strange, sad state, he was several times faster than usual. If someone was here, they would only see a black shadow flash and then disappear. This car's cave was very strange. Gusts of mysterious wind blew out of the cave from time to time, making terrifying roars. Moreover, there were many forks in the car's cave. At the end of every fork, there would be several similar forks. Such forks were almost endless. It was like a huge maze. If they didn't know the specific path, they might wander around here for years, decades, or even centuries without finding anything. Although there weren't any dangerous, ferocious beasts or demonic spirits inside. A maze like this could trap a person until their lifespan ran out and they died. That kind of boundless loneliness was even more torturous. It's the end of the month. Brothers with monthly tickets, please spend a few tickets. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen next, please go to www.chijian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 167. If it was a formation, the most annoying thing was undoubtedly the maze formation. If someone entered this place and didn't know the way to break the maze formation, they would walk back and forth. It would seem that they had walked thousands of miles, but in the end, they would realize that they had walked in circles for days and nights. Even if they walked for hundreds or thousands of years, they would only walk in a small circle. If they found out, they would be disgusted to death. What was even more disgusting than the maze formation was a maze. A maze was even more disgusting. In a maze, almost everything you saw was exactly the same. The forks were the same, the passageways were the same, and the rocks under your feet were the same. Every passageway was exactly the same, without any deviation. If you walked out of this fork path, there would be another 10 or so identical fork paths in front of you. Every step you took was a step deeper into the maze. In the end, it would be strange if you didn't go crazy because of the endless forked paths. Perhaps someone with a weaker will would completely collapse in the maze. A maze like this didn't need any guards. Once you entered, the maze was your biggest enemy. There were only 2 kinds of people who could pass through such a maze. The first kind was those who knew the specific way of the maze, had a map of the maze in hand, or could find some obscure markings. Only then would they be able to reach the destination. The second kind was those who were extremely lucky and could find the right path with their eyes closed. That was a matter of innate luck. No one could say anything when they walked out. There was another kind, which was even rarer, intuition. Innate intuition, or the ability to sense something. Only then would they be able to pass through unimpeded. The karst cave in front of them was the most disgusting kind of maze. No matter how good a person's memory was, they would become confused after walking a few rounds in this place. However, Dishurkin's performance was even more mysterious. He naturally shuttled through the forked paths, his body moving quickly like a ghost. Every time he came to a fork, he didn't seem to need to think at all and could directly choose a path. It was as if he had some kind of intuition in the dark. In an instant, he had passed through countless forked paths. Bang, bang, bang. At this moment, in the heavenly lake, the fierce fighting suddenly stopped. Many figures passed through the black veil in front of the cave and rushed into the cave. They were led by Wu Wudi, Shui Wuhan, and Lu Xiling. There were less than 100 cultivators behind them, and each of them had wounds of varying sizes. He appeared to be in a sorry state. However, even though they were in a sorry state, traces of joy surfaced on their faces as their gazes occasionally landed on their storage bags. Obviously, each of them placed great importance on the items in their bags. That's right. The sound of the zither came from this cave. Dishurtian had already rushed in and is nowhere to be seen. He must have entered the cave. However, there were 9 forks in front of him, and he didn't know which one was the correct entrance. If you go the wrong way, it might be very troublesome. Wu Wudi's eyes flashed. He didn't care about the injuries on his body. He kept looking back and forth at the 9 forks. He hoped that he could find the correct passage. Unfortunately, to his disappointment, the 9 forks were exactly the same in terms of appearance and aura. There was no difference at all. It was quite difficult to tell which one was the correct one. It was almost impossible. I'm afraid this is a huge maze. I read about it in the library back at home. If there are forks in front of you, there's an 80 to 90% chance that it's a huge maze. Such a maze is easy to enter, but difficult to exit. If you can't find the correct path, it's possible that you'll be trapped in there for the rest of your life. Everyone, please don't recklessly enter the forks. Shui Wuhan closed his folding fan with a snap. He looked at the cave in front of him with a dignified expression. It was obvious that he was taking it seriously. The smallest part of the labyrinth was that there were 3 forks in the beginning. After the other forks, there would be 3 more forks. The cycle of 3 by 3 was endless. If you couldn't find the way out, you would be trapped inside. The higher the number of forks, the more frightening the labyrinth would be. It was said that the highest level of the labyrinth was the 9 paths. There were exactly 9 forks in front of them. If they went in, there was a 99% chance that they'd be trapped in there. Then what do? Are we going to be blocked by these forks? The verdant zither might be hidden in the maze. If we stop here, we won't be able to achieve the purpose of this trip. Lu Xiling frowned, appearing extremely impatient and annoyed. Almost everyone who had survived realized that the greatest secret of the zither realm might be hidden in this maze. It was also their goal this time, the verdant zither. After all, the natural and peaceful sound of the zither had come from here. In this place, no one was a big deal. It could be guessed with one's toes. However, in front of these 9 forks, no one dared to act rashly. They were afraid that if they entered, they wouldn't be able to come out. That would be a complete tragedy. No one wanted to play around with their lives and gamble on a small probability. For a moment, everyone looked at the 9 forks in front of them at the entrance of the cave and didn't move. It was as if they weren't forks in front of them, but 9 terrifying, fierce beasts. In the myriad Demon Valley, on the waterfall peak in a valley, a clear stream of water splashed with countless snow-white splashes fell from the sky and heavily fell into the pool below. There was a large reef on the peak. On the reef, a girl in a snow-white white dress was holding a cyan treasure box in her hand. Her 2 intelligent eyes were constantly scanning the treasure box. She reached out a hand and wanted to put it down, but she couldn't. After a long time, as if in a fit of pique, he threw the treasure box to the side and said angrily, "How infuriating! Who exactly created this imperial heavenly treasure box. To actually use such a puzzle as a restriction. If I hadn't seen Sakura, I wouldn't have known that there was such a puzzle hidden in this jade box. But why is the puzzle so difficult? His gaze toward the treasure box was filled with anger. She was annoyed that Di Shirtian could solve the puzzle, but she couldn't. Didn't this mean that she was inferior to Di Shirtian? Sister Baihu, if you can't solve it, then don't. When brother comes back, return it to him and let him solve it. Brother will definitely find a way to solve it. Beside her, a little white tiger looked at the girl and said, it had incomparable confidence in the brother it was referring to. It was as if in her heart, her brother was omnipotent. Your brother went out this time, and his whereabouts are uncertain. It's to learn Zither skills so that he can control the 7 sins demon Zither. I'm afraid he won't be back for a year or two. The girl in the palace dress shook her head slightly. She looked into the distance. They were none other than Baihu, Su Tianxiang, and little Di Shirtian. When Di Shirtian was about to leave, Baihu suddenly asked Di Shirtian for the heavenly treasure box. Although Di Shirtian knew that there was a big secret in this treasure box, he needed Baihu to look after the myriad demon valley. Baihu's strength was even more unfathomable, so he could only return the treasure box to her. Baihu had seen Di Shirtian solve the treasure box. Only then did she know that the patterns on the treasure box that looked like patterns in the past were actually a puzzle. Only then did she understand the true key to solving the treasure box. Therefore, when she got the treasure box, she wanted to solve it by hand. Unfortunately, none of these pieces were connected. They looked like little tadpoles. There was not much difference or connection between them. It seemed that Baihu did not have any talent in this area. Looking at the dense patterns, her eyes were dizzy. It was as if countless little tadpoles had appeared in front of her. She wanted to solve it, but did not know where to start. Only then did she angrily throw the treasure box aside. She laughed bitterly to herself. Is the heavenly treasure box really not fated to be with me? Could it be that its owner is Di Shirtian? Brother is learning, and Little White also wants to become stronger. Little White has been cultivating the cultivation technique that Brother left for me these days. I'm much stronger than before. When Brother comes back, Little White wants to give Brother a surprise, Little White said longingly. These days, not only Little White, it could be said that all the spirit beasts and monsters in the valley were cultivating with all their might. With the help of elixirs and spirit wine, all of them buried their heads in cultivation. They were all holding their breaths, hoping that they could be of use in the future. They hoped that during this period of time, they could become demonic beasts. One had to know that before leaving, Di Shirtian had even passed down the secret technique of opening up the demonic abode. He had also made all the subordinates in the valley loyal to him. There would definitely not be a situation of betrayal. This was loyalty to the death. Using kindness and authority had always been the best method for a person in a higher position. Baihu gently patted Little White's head. She raised her head and looked into the distance. There was a strange expression on her face. Swoosh! Sakura quickly shuttled through the passageway. Every time he chose a fork, he didn't need to think at all. He didn't know how many forks he had passed through before his eyes suddenly opened up. After walking out of the fork, what was placed in front of him was no longer an endless fork, but a huge and spacious cave. In front of his eyes, there were pieces of floating water. Sparkling and translucent water ripples appeared. They were suffused with a strange luster. In front of him was a pool. The water in the pool was incomparably clear. There were pieces of smooth, large stones in the pool, connecting all the way to form a path on the water. In the center of the pool, there was actually an ancient pavilion. Obviously, this was not naturally formed. In the pavilion, there was a table and a stool. On the table, there was a green jade zither. On the jade zither, there were simple and unadorned lines. When combined together, they were actually pieces of jade green leaves. Within these green leaves, if one looked carefully, one could feel an extremely rich aura of life. This made the jade zither even more mysterious and extraordinary. Zither, zither, zither. As soon as Di Shirtian entered, his sorrowful eyes fell on the jade zither in the ancient pavilion. A trace of clarity appeared in his eyes. Without hesitation, he stepped on those reefs and landed in the ancient pavilion. The moment his hands entered, he grabbed the jade zither. Very strangely, the jade zither did not have a trace of resistance. His hands landed on the zither. With this touch, his body trembled violently. The sorrow in his eyes actually slowly faded. Many thanks to the Moonlight Clan, the Dead Shadow, and the other brothers for their tips. Many thanks to all of you for your monthly votes. I hope that those of you who have the ability can help me subscribe to this page. Chapter 168. From the body of the zither, a cool and mysterious energy quickly spread from his palm into his body. This energy seemed to contain endless vitality, as well as a natural and peaceful aura. When it entered his body, it was as if he had suddenly been doused with ice water at 0 degrees Celsius on a hot summer day. His entire body, from the bottom of his heart, felt cold all over. His entire body quivered, and the sadness in his eyes quickly receded like the tide. However, this sadness only disappeared from his eyes, and the sadness in his body was only suppressed to a weak state. It did not truly dissipate, but was only suddenly suppressed. Obviously, this was not a dispersal. When the sadness gradually disappeared, Tian's eyes gradually regained their clarity and became bright. In his eyes, one could see traces of fear. Wah! He lowered his head to look at the zither in front of him, deep in thought. Suddenly, he lifted his hand from the zither again and removed it. In the instant that he removed it, his originally clear eyes, out of nowhere, once again emitted a strong sense of sadness. Moreover, it appeared relatively quickly, and its power was incomparably strong. It was almost as if it was about to swallow the clarity in his body in an instant. This change immediately caused him to place his hand on the zither again at lightning speed. Strangely, when his hand touched the zither, instantly, the sadness in his body seemed to have met its nemesis. It quickly disappeared, and in the blink of an eye, more than half of it was retracted into his body. How terrifying! I was almost consigned to eternal damnation and completely sunk into the realm of sadness. I did not expect that when I fused the power of sadness with my demon veins, it would actually create the pulse of sadness and attract the endless sadness of all living beings in the world and exert on my body. I did not even have the ability to resist, and directly fell into this enormous sadness of all living beings. Tian placed his hand on the zither and did not dare to remove it at all. He raised his head and sighed, and a trace of fear flashed across his face. He clearly knew what had happened during this period of time, and every single one of them was clearly remembered in his mind, including how he entered the realm of sadness, how his body was controlled by the sadness, how he wandered around in the realm of the zither, and how he killed Shue Ini and the rest. All of it was deeply imprinted in his mind. He only had a deep lingering fear for what he had experienced during this period of time. Back then, when he fused the power of sorrow into the demonic meridian, he already had a premonition that something unexpected would happen. After all, this was something that no one had ever tried before. What was even more unexpected was that the demonic meridian would become a meridian of sorrow. Of course, this meridian of sorrow was not without its miraculous aspects. The benefit was that with this meridian of sorrow, he could rely on it to absorb the boundless power of sorrow in the world, taking the first step towards absorbing the power of desire. However, the disadvantage was also very obvious. The sorrow that was triggered by the meridian of sorrow gathered the sorrow of all living beings in the world. All the sad things that happened, all the sad thoughts, all rushed to him. The result of this was a sorrowful state of affairs. This sorrowful state could be said to be a type of illusion, a state of tempering one's heart. Once one entered, they wouldn't be able to see through it and would be corroded by the sorrowful intent contained within the sorrowful state. If one wanted to recover, it would be an impossible matter. This was also the situation that Sakura encountered earlier. That scene was the best manifestation of being corroded by the sorrowful intent. Without any accidents, one would completely sink into it and never wake up again. One would become a walking corpse, never to be able to transcend. How could Tion not be afraid when he thought of such a consequence when he woke up? This had nothing to do with anything else but pure fear. After all, the sorrowful state was too terrifying. Even if an immortal god was in his position, he would probably end up the same way. There would definitely be no other outcome. Unless one had a treasure that could protect one's mind. Perhaps only then would one not be afraid of the terrifying, sorrowful thoughts of all living beings. This zither, could it be the legendary green silk zither of the zither school? But whether it is or not, it can help me resist the erosion of sorrow. This is definitely an incredible treasure. Sakura withdrew his lingering fear and fixed his eyes on the guqin in front of him. The guqin presented a kind of living jade green color. There were 7 strings on the guqin, and the green leaves all over the body of the guqin were emitting bursts of strong life aura. Pan, sitting on the jade stool, he picked up the zither and looked under the body of the zither. In an instant, 2 ancient words full of green appeared in front of him. Green silk. Without a doubt, this zither was indeed the biggest treasure in this zither realm. The most precious treasure was also the green silk zither used for the betrothal. After thinking about it, he poured his monster essence into the zither. It was very strange. Monster essence couldn't enter the zither at all. It was rejected from the outside, as if it couldn't be refined at all. Looking at the zither, Tion didn't have the slightest bit of joy on his face. His eyes flashed with a profound light from time to time. His expression was very strange, as if he was neither unhappy nor disappointed. In fact, he was extremely conflicted. The green silk zither is an item used by the Qin family for the betrothal. They said that as long as I find the zither and bring it out of the zither realm, I'll be the son-in-law of the Qin family, Katomi's husband and Tao partner. However, I entered the zither realm because I was curious and wanted to see the mysteries of the zither realm. Second, I want to go into seclusion to condense my first spirit vein. Third, I wanted to find the zither. According to my original plan, once I found the zither, I would enter the Qin family as a gift and ask them to teach me music theory and the art of the zither. However, the sadness in my body hasn't disappeared. The zither seems to contain a mysterious power that can help me suppress the sadness in my heart. If I leave the zither, I'm afraid I'll fall into the same situation again. That is, even if I have 9 more lives, I'm afraid it'll be very difficult to escape. He'd already tried it earlier. The zither could indeed suppress his sadness, but it wouldn't disappear immediately. If his body was strong enough, it would become a tragedy. The problem was that he couldn't hand over the zither now. If he got the zither, the Qin family would never allow him to take it away. After all, it was the Qin family's most precious treasure. Moreover, he'd never thought of becoming the son-in-law of the Qin family and marrying Katomi. He was a spirit beast, and Katomi was a human. He was now enemies with most of the cultivators in the cultivation world. And there was also the Colossus that was the 10,000 beast sect above him. If a human and a spirit beast were to marry, there would be immeasurable obstacles. Taking a step back, Sakura didn't put the issue of hindrance in his eyes. After becoming the Demon Empress, his style of doing things had gradually leaned toward the situation where there was no taboo and he did as he pleased. The problem was that he'd only seen Katomi once, and it was under a veil. It could only be said that he'd seen half of her face. There were no feelings between them. Under such circumstances, it was absolutely impossible for him to marry her. He'd only come to learn the zither, not to marry a wife. However, there was now a problem with the zither. I can't hand the zither over to the Qin family for now. Without the suppression of the zither's mysterious power, I'll fall into the sorrowful mirror at any time. However, if I don't hand it over, how to hide it will become a problem. Tion pondered. Hiding the zither was definitely a big problem. After all, it belonged to the Qin family. Even if he put it in a storage pouch after leaving, The Qin family might use a secret technique to detect it. Moreover, the zither couldn't leave his body. Hide it in the Yao residence, or in the Yao refining cauldron? These thoughts only turned for a moment before he dismissed them. He hadn't refined the zither, so it was impossible for him to put it in the Yao residence. Therefore, it wouldn't work. Suddenly, a light flashed in his mind. The purple king mark on his forehead flickered, and an idea came to him. If it can't be in the Yao residence, then I wonder if the purple pool in my king mark can absorb it. If it can, given the mysteriousness of my king mark, even the Qin family would find it difficult to detect it. Indeed, the purple king mark was his innate magical ability. Although it could only absorb some souls now, and didn't seem to be too powerful, Sakura had always been very certain that this innate magical ability was absolutely not what it appeared to be now. It must have other powerful aspects. It contained inconceivable power. If it was truly unleashed, it would shock the heavens and earth and make ghosts and gods weep. The purple pool was even more mysterious. Perhaps, with the mysteriousness of the king mark, it could absorb the zither. I'll give it a try. If it works, I'll be able to suppress the sorrowful intent in my body. Next, even if I can't enter the Qin family, I can still enter through other means. Di Shirtian acted without hesitation. With a thought, the purple king mark on his forehead immediately emitted strands of purple light. The mark flickered violently, like a burning purple flame. It looked very wondrous. Purple light sprinkled down like rain, quickly covering the verdant zither in front of him. Under his control, the king mark emitted a powerful suction force, connecting with the purple pool space in the king mark, wanting to pull the zither into the purple pool. Ding dong! In the purple light, the strings of the verdant zither suddenly vibrated, emitting a crisp sound. A powerful aura of life burst out of the zither. It seemed to want to resist, but strangely, at the last moment of eruption, the aura suddenly retracted and returned to the zither. Then, it emitted waves of green light, following the pull of the king mark, turning into a green light, smoothly rushing into the purple pool space in the king mark. Ding dong! In the purple pool, all the souls were immersed in the water. Strands of purple light surged from the pool to their bodies. Slowly, it seemed that a purple battle armor formed from purple light was beginning to condense on their bodies. All of them had their eyes closed and didn't seem to be awake at all. It was very strange. This was something that even Di Shirtian couldn't change. Now, in the purple pool, more than 1,000 souls had been absorbed, close to 2,000. Most of them were human souls, and a small number were the souls of animals. To be continued. If you want to know what will happen, please go to www.chijian.com. More chapters, support the author, support the original reading. Chapter 169. No matter if it was a human soul or a demon soul, as long as they entered the purple pool, they would be covered by the purple light. Then, the originally struggling soul would naturally calm down, as if some kind of fundamental transformation was happening. However, Sakura didn't know what kind of mystery was behind all of this. He only knew that it was definitely developing in a good direction. Perhaps it was the purple king mark's own transformation. In any case, every time he absorbed a soul, he could clearly feel the power of the king mark growing stronger. This kind of strength was a mysterious feeling that couldn't be described with words. Moreover, he couldn't use the other powers of the king mark. When the zither entered the purple pool, it directly floated above the purple pool. Its surface glowed with a dark green light. Waves of mysterious power emanated from the zither and slowly flowed through the king mark into his body. It kept suppressing the endless sorrow that erupted from the meridian of sorrow. Not only that, but at the same time that it emitted power to suppress the sorrow, strands of purple chi seeped out from the purple pool and entered the zither. The zither didn't reject any of it and absorbed as much as it came. Tirtian frowned slightly when he saw the zither really being absorbed into the space of the king mark and the various strange phenomena that occurred. However, he didn't care. The zither didn't cause him any harm and only absorbed some purple chi. Anyway, with the purple pool, the purple chi was practically endless. He wasn't afraid of it drying up. The meridian of sorrow has been temporarily suppressed, but how do I truly resolve it? Also, if I reach the next level, the late stage, I'll have to create a second spirit meridian. Don't tell me I'll have to continue drawing out other desires to fuse with the second spirit meridian? Tirtian immediately began to think about the future after solving the problem in front of him for the time being. The first thing he had to think about was how to cultivate in the future. Since he had made the spirit meridian of sorrow, he could feel the power of sorrow in the world. Moreover, he could clearly feel that he could absorb the power of sorrow into his body. However, he had shaped the meridian of sorrow, which meant that he had begun to abandon the original roaring tiger technique. If he wanted to cultivate again, it would be very different from the original cultivation. After all, since ancient times, no one had been able to absorb the power of desire in the heavens and earth. If the power of desire could be absorbed, how could he cultivate? If he wanted to refine it, should he turn it into demonic chi or the power of desire? All of this left him at a loss. This was a problem that needed to be solved urgently. This also meant that no one would be able to guide him much in his cultivation in the future. He had to rely on himself. If he could succeed, then he would be opening up a path that had never existed since ancient times. Furthermore, the choice was already in front of him. After forming the first demonic vein, his cultivation base had already reached the middle demonic beast realm. If he wanted to advance further, he would reach the late demonic beast realm. The process of accumulating demonic chi was something that could be accomplished within half a year or a year by relying on the essence of the corpses in the cauldron. At that time, he would have to start forming the second demonic vein. What should he do then? This was a difficult choice to make. If he chose to integrate the power of desire, he would completely deviate from the ordinary demonic cultivation path. He would be walking on an unprecedented path. If he chose to follow the orthodox method of forming the ordinary demonic vein, it would be equivalent to walking on the ancient demonic cultivation path. One was the unknown. The other was that there was an example in front of him and he could see the light. This choice was a major one that would determine the path of one's life. If I choose to integrate the power of desire, every time I form a demonic vein, I will add one more power of desire. There are 7 emotions and 6 desires in the heavens and earth. In total, there are 13 emotions and 6 desires. However, once the power of desire is integrated, it will erupt with a terrifying desire. It will be extremely dangerous. At any time, I may step into the land of eternal damnation. Tirtian shook his head inwardly. He could not make this decision for the time being. After all, this was something that could not be sloppy. Forget it. We will cross that bridge when we get to it. Now I have to solve the problem of the sorrow in my body. I have to figure out how to not be affected by the sorrow, how to use it for my own purposes, and how to enter the Qin family. As for the rest, I will slowly think of a way in the future. He suddenly stood up and looked at his body. His original black robes had become tattered and could not be worn again. There were also many wounds on his body. However, for some reason, the wounds from the demonic spirits in the heavenly lake began to heal automatically when he came into contact with the verdant silk zither. Now, whether it was inside or outside, everything was fine. There were only a few wounds left on his body. Tirtian did not care about the wounds. There's a saying, which man did not have a few scars on his body? Scars were a man's unique charm. He was not a woman. Why should he care? After changing into a new black robes, he scanned his surroundings. He discovered that there was really nothing in this ancient cave. Apart from the verdant silk zither that he had collected, there was nothing left. However, it was not surprising. If there was anything here, it would have been taken away by the Qin family long ago. Why would they leave it to others? It's almost a month. It's time to go out. With a wave of his long sleeves, he stepped on the stones in the lake and quickly stood on the opposite side. He began to return the way he had come. He had memorized the path he had taken earlier. As long as he followed his memory, he would be able to walk out easily. There was no need to worry about the danger of getting lost in this great maze. He walked forward quickly. As he walked, he did not know how many forks he had passed along the way. He walked for more than an hour. Finally, after passing through the last fork in the road, the scene before his eyes suddenly opened up, and the figures in front of him were imprinted into his eyes. Whoosh! The figures in front of him were Woo-Woody and the others. No one dared to set foot in this great maze. They were afraid that if they entered, they would not be able to come out alive. The cruelty of the Zither realm had made everyone aware that no one would joke around here. If they were not careful, they could lose their lives here. This was a bloody lesson that spurred them on. However, they were not so willing to retreat. In front of the fork, they all silently pondered, hoping to find a way out. And the appearance of Sakura, almost in an instant, attracted everyone's attention. Rays of light fell on his body with whooshing sounds. Heavens! It's that madman surnamed D. He actually walked out of the maze. How is that possible? This maze is the most terrifying great 9-turn maze. How could he walk out safely? Madman. He really is a madman. Only a madman would rush into the maze. It's very likely that the verdant Zither is hidden in the maze. Now that he has walked out, could it be that he has already obtained the verdant Zither? In an instant, cries of alarm rang out one after another. However, everyone only looked at him suspiciously, and no one dared to act rashly. The scene of Sakura fighting against the demonic souls in the heavenly pool was still vivid in their minds. That crazy look, that ferocious fighting style, that ferocious scene where he was willing to fight to the death with others, and that ferocious scene where he would rather fight to the death than retreat, all made people shudder in fear when they faced Sakura. Fear. That's right, fear. Although this feeling should not have appeared, it did appear in the hearts of most cultivators. From this, it could be seen that in their hearts, Sakura was absolutely the one they didn't want to provoke the most. It was as if his body was shrouded in a mysterious aura. When Woo-Woody saw D. Shirtion, a smile appeared on his rough face. Brother D is indeed extraordinary. You can even walk back and forth in the great 9-turn maze. I, Woo-Woody, am full of admiration. If there's a chance, I hope to exchange pointers with Brother D. He was a little surprised to see D. Shirtion. After all, he had seen D. Shirtion enter before everyone else with his own eyes. When they entered, he disappeared. Obviously, he had entered the maze. Everything in front of him confirmed his guess. A martial cultivator? D. Shirtion still exuded traces of sadness. He had not completely suppressed it. This sadness did not affect him, and even had the effect of concealing his demonic aura. In comparison, under the effect of sadness, as long as it was not completely exposed, it should be very difficult for people to detect the demonic aura emanating from his body. All they could feel was a sense of sadness. Under such circumstances, sadness seemed to have a side benefit. He had some impression of Woo-Woody. He didn't dislike his temperament, and seemed to be a person he could make friends with. However, he didn't say much at this moment. Woo-Hin would also like to make friends with a friend like Brother D. If you're interested, why don't the three of us gather in a restaurant after we leave the Zither domain? We can drink and chat merrily. Shui Woo-Hin also took a step forward and said to Sakura with a smile. In his smile, people could feel a kind of sincerity. They couldn't help but like him. Surprisingly, whether it was Woo-Woody or Shui Woo-Hin, neither of them asked Sakura if he had found Lu Chi-Chin. Instead, they only said that they wanted to make friends. However, their gentleness did not mean that the others would let it go so easily. A cold glint flashed in Lu Xiling's eyes as he looked at D. Shirtion. He suddenly questioned, Woo-Woody and Shui Woo-Hin think highly of you and did not ask, but I, Lu Xiling, am not afraid of you. This maze is in the middle of the Guqin realm, and the previous Guqin music came from here. If I'm not mistaken, the Lu Chi-Chin is in the maze. You are the only one who entered and came out safely. Has the verdant zither already fallen into your hands? His voice was incomparably sharp, and every word was like a sharp arrow that shot towards Di Shirtion. There was a sense of superiority in his tone, as if he was speaking to a servant. He questioned them without any trace of politeness, and there was a hint of arrogance in his tone. Almost instantly, Di Shirtion's eyes shot out two rays of astonishing radiance. To be continued. If you want to know what happened next, please go to www.chidian.com. There are more chapters. Support the author. Support the original reading. Chapter 170. When he looked at Lu Xiling, he glanced at the other cultivators except for Wu Wudi and Shui Wuan. He found that most of them involuntarily looked at him after hearing Lu Xiling's question. Moreover, there was a look of anticipation in their eyes. Obviously, they were also very concerned about this question. The verdant zither was in his hands, but would he really be so stupid to tell others about it? If it had been before the formation of the Meridian of Sorrow, he might have given the zither to the Qin family as he had originally planned. But now, in order to suppress the hidden dangers in his body, he did not even intend to tell the Qin family about the existence of the verdant zither. How could he reveal it to others? How could Di Shirtion be so stupid? A cold light flashed in his eyes and shot directly into Lu Xiling's. He said indifferently, "Who are you? Why do you have to question me? Not to mention that I have never seen the verdant zither. Even if I had seen it and obtained it, why should I tell you?" As he spoke, a strong, majestic aura emanated from his body without any concealment. It pressed down on Lu Xiling like an avalanche. This aura was the natural majesty of the king of beasts. As the king of the myriad demon valley, it was the aura of a superior being that had been cultivated bit by bit. At this moment, although Di Shirtion was standing in front of him, his whole person was like an incomparably tall mountain. People could only look up to him and could not stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Most of this aura pressed down on Lu Xiling, but a small part of it spread out in all directions. The other cultivators felt it and involuntarily took a few steps back. Even Wu Wudi and Shui Wuhan's eyes lit up. The way they looked at Di Shirtion changed again. It was very different. Wu Wudi felt a burst of heroism rise in his heart. He thought to himself, Good. Di Shirtion is really a good opponent. Just this aura alone makes my fighting spirit stir. I must find a chance to fight with him. Otherwise, I will regret it for the rest of my life. Shui Wuhan also thought to herself, this aura, if he is not a natural king or has been in a high position for a long time, he will never have such majesty. Although it is a little faint, it is somewhat similar to my father's. His identity is definitely not simple. Such a person is worth befriending. He will definitely be helpful to my Aquamoon paradise. Others might not know, but he knew very well that this kind of aura was definitely not something an ordinary person could possess. That kind of aura of a high position could only be slowly cultivated by those who were truly in that position. There was no way to pretend. Lu Xiling's expression changed when the pressure fell on him. It was as if a few heavy mountains had suddenly appeared on his body. The terrifying aura made it difficult for him to even breathe. Clang! However, he was, after all, a sword cultivator whose attack power could be compared to a martial cultivator. Under this kind of terrifying pressure, his body suddenly trembled. From his body, a swift and fierce sword intent burst forth. This sword intent was incomparably sharp, as if it could split a mountain in half. It quickly resisted the pressure outside his body. Although it couldn't completely resist it, at least he could still stand in front of Sakura. Why? Because my profound heart sword sect is one of the top sects in the cultivation world. Because my master is the great elder of the profound heart sword sect. I, Lu Xiling, am an elite disciple of the sect. With every sentence Lu Xiling spoke, the sword intent on his body became sharper, and even his back seemed to be straighter. With an arrogant face, he looked at Di Shirtion in disdain. He was full of self-satisfaction. a person who only knows how to rely on the sect behind him. When he meets a strong enemy, he only knows how to use his sect as his backing. Such a person is nothing more than a conceited and useless coward. D. Tion sneered. So what if you have a sect behind you? If you provoke me, I, D. Tion, will kill you like a weed. When the last sentence was spat out, it was as cold as a gust of wind, chilling one to the bone. Clang, clang, clang. With a shake of his body, over 20 pitch-black, crescent-shaped blades rapidly condensed from within his body. Each and every one of these blades were flickering with a cold light. Once they appeared, they quickly danced around Sakura's body. These were all demonic mist blades condensed from demonic chi. However, the demonic mist blades that appeared now were a little strange. They weren't emitting demonic chi, but a sense of sorrow. If someone were to examine it carefully, they would discover that under this sorrow, there was a strong demonic chi hidden within. D. Tion naturally wouldn't be so foolish as to reveal his demonic aura in front of so many cultivators. Wouldn't that be telling everyone that he was a demon, a member of the demon race? At that time, it would be very difficult for him to leave this place. That was why he had wrapped the demon mist blade in a thick layer of sorrow. Under the cover of the sorrow, his demonic aura wouldn't be revealed. Once the demonic mist blades were condensed, they immediately slashed towards Lu Xiling without any hesitation. Furthermore, they didn't hold back in the slightest. 20 blades blasted out at the same time. From top to bottom, they completely covered Lu Xiling's entire body from top to bottom, covering every angle. This kind of attack was completely intended to completely annihilate him in one strike. Those who oppose me must die. Otherwise, if they didn't kill the tiger, they would leave behind future troubles. Looking at Lu Xiling's appearance, how could D. Tion not know that Lu Xiling's heart would definitely be filled with jealousy and hatred towards him? Perhaps Lu Xiling couldn't do anything to him, but if he returned to the sect and beat up the young, and the old came out, then he wouldn't be able to handle it. Perhaps there would be great danger. This was originally the specialty of some immortal cultivation sections. Since you dare to make the first move. When Lu Xiling saw the demon mist blade that drew out streaks of black light and directly covered him, his expression finally changed. His hand instantly landed on the ancient sword on his back. It had to be said that although he was a loathsome person, he was able to reach the position of an elite disciple in the Mystic Heartsword sect. The cultivation in his hands was definitely not fake. With a twist of his wrist, the ancient sword was suddenly unsheathed. Thousand splitting sword art. His body emitted a sharp sword intent. With a twist of the sword, it seemed as if the surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth had all turned into sword chi and surged into the sword. Like lightning, thousands of swords suddenly appeared beside him. These swords were all exactly the same. It was as if in an instant his ancient sword had suddenly split apart, and his entire body was covered by thousands of swords. His entire body was like a hedgehog covered with needles. Ding, ding, ding. Amidst a wave of rapid collisions, the 1,000 ancient swords that covered Lu Xiling's body were annihilated one after another. Sword chi flew out and bombarded the stone walls in the surroundings. It was very strange. The stone walls were actually not damaged in the slightest. It was incomparably strange. In the blink of an eye, the 1,000 ancient swords were annihilated, and the 20 demonic mist blades were annihilated as well. In the end, there was only one blade left. Moreover, its light was dim, as if it could be destroyed at any time. This blade slashed across in an instant, and with a pu sound, it cut a deep wound on Lu Xiling's left arm. Blood began to flow out with a splash. Today, I, Lu Xiling, will not let you go. A trace of deep hatred flashed in Lu Xiling's eyes. Looking at the wound on his arm, his killing intent was even more awe-inspiring. The ancient sword in his hand moved, and he was about to pounce on D. Tion to fight to the death. Wait, I think this is only a small matter. Both of you are young geniuses. It is not worth it to fight to the death over such a small matter. Just at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared between Sakura and Lu Xiling as he hurriedly opened his mouth to persuade them. Looking at the simple fan in her hand, who else could it be but Shui Wuhan? Hee. Young noble Shui is right. Both of you have a bright future ahead of you. Why are you trying to kill each other here? Not only Shui Wuhan. At this time, even if Shui Wuhan stood in front of him, Indra might not listen and would definitely fight to the death. However, when the second voice came out, it made all the cultivators in the cave tremble at the same time. Indra frowned, and the majestic aura that was originally emitting couldn't help but be withdrawn back into his body. At the entrance of the cave, an old man with a long flute in his hand smiled at the cultivators in the cave. This person was very familiar to all the cultivators here. He was none other than Elder Shao of the Qin family's flute and flute 2 elders. Everyone, including the time you spent in the heart-tempering song in the outer domain of the zither domain, tomorrow is the 1-month deadline. Because I'm afraid that something will happen to you, the family head specially arranged for me to come and lead you out of the zither domain. As for whether Mr. D has obtained the verdant zither or not, as long as you leave the zither domain, you will know clearly. Elder Shao said with a smile. But in his heart, he secretly said, that was close. Fortunately, the patriarch predicted that there might be a dispute in the zither realm. Previously, a bloodstained coat with a deep background died in the zither realm. It was already very troublesome. If these two were to fight now, no matter who died, they would be in big trouble this time. Fortunately, I came in time. Although the Qin family was not afraid of any enemies, no one wanted to have trouble. Since everyone was able to make it this far in the zither domain, you must have obtained many treasures that you could not have imagined before. Don't worry, the Qin family has already made it clear that whoever obtains these treasures will have their own opportunities. The Qin family will not take them back. Now, please follow me to the illusory door of nothingness and leave this place first. As soon as Elder Shao said this, most of the people in the cave were immediately filled with joy. When they obtained those weapon embryos earlier, they were faintly worried that the Qin family would take them back. Now that there was a guarantee, that was to say, what they obtained in their hands was their own. With these weapon embryos, the dangers they experienced in the zither domain were worth it. Humph! Lu Xiling looked at Di Shirtian and snorted heavily. A trace of hatred flashed in the corner of his eyes. Obviously, he would not let him go in the future. Sakura furrowed his brows inwardly as he glanced deeply at Elder Shao. If it wasn't for his sudden arrival, as long as they fought together, he would have a way to make Lu Xiling stay here. Now, he was afraid that he would bring another enemy. Tomorrow is the 7th month. I would like to ask for everyone's guaranteed monthly votes tomorrow to help me charge into the monthly votes list once again. Brothers, Di Shirtian wants to proclaim himself as the Ancestor, so he needs the monthly votes, this divine weapon, as a weapon. Once he reaches the top of the monthly votes list, the protagonist will be able to hold onto the Tiger Soul. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.